All right, it is recording.
Are we ready? We are
so.
ready. I have two announcements I'd like to make. One is that the new schedule for the Rush Range on Stony Brook Road is out. And if anyone would like to have a copy of it, stop into the supervisor's office. We will make you a copy. The other announcement I want to make is I've been involved with the Stop the Violence campaign that started probably 2.5 months ago with an assembly of police personnel in the Gates Town Hall, and Pinnacle Road from Gates hosted that conference. And the thing that I continue to think about, having attended that conference, is all of the information that was shared by various police agencies in that conference was a lot of it was information I never saw on TV, never read in the paper, never saw or heard on the radio. And when you go through that experience, it's very concerning. At least it was very concerning to me, because I've always regarded Rush as a safe little haven where we all have fun and enjoy life. But I think that the recent exponential escalation in crime in the area, not only in our area, but across the country. But of course, I can't do anything about San Francisco, but I can participate and try to do something here. And since that conference, we've had 3 press conferences, and they were not a lot of attendees, but some attendance. The reason I'm telling you all this is because I don't know how you feel about crime coming in our direction. I think it is, based upon the police reports that I've heard. I don't like it. I want to continue to live in Rush peacefully and quietly. But if you see any opportunity to attend a rally against the violence, I would really appreciate it if you would take the time to attend it. If it gets in our area, it'll be too late. And what will the next step be then? I don't know. But right now, it is scary. It is to me. And it's something that I think every resident of Rush should be concerned with and be willing in some way to get involved. So enough for that. Now, I want to make an announcement about the strange agenda you're looking at tonight. The public comment period, which will be first. And that, remember, is the comment period where you don't have any two-way dialogue. It's all your expression of opinion, your expression of concern. And that's the way it stands. Just be very cognizant of who's around you and who could be listening to this on their TV tomorrow morning, little kids or whatever. So be kind and be considerate. I want to make sure that you know that the 1911 House dialogue that took place at our last meeting didn't get completed. And I know Mr. Silversky had some things to say, and he probably, if he'd had a rotten tomato, he would have thrown it at me because I said no. And the reason I said no was because we were running out of time, and I knew I could make that change on today's agenda. So the first part of the public comment period can be your voice regarding the 1911 House. No matter what you have to say it. And let's get that out of the way. I emailed Dan earlier in the week, and Dan's response led me to do this because, well, I won't tell you exactly what he said, but I agreed with it. So if you'd like to talk about the 1911 House now and understand what the rules of the game are, have at it. Mr. Silversky. Name, address.
You got it. Dave Silversky, 69 Rush West Rush Road. I'm also the co-president of the Rush Historical Society. A little refresher, 2 weeks ago, Wi-Fi turned off at 10 p.m. This cut out an audience of about 23. The meeting went into a scramble. The open forum didn't happen. Supervisor Kusi publicly stated, I'd be the first to address the public at this meeting here. I plan to respond to the remarks regarding the report. Councilperson Woolever did not objectively respond in depth and glossed over the subject with the comments such as the building needs work, it's expensive, there are cracks, the roof is needed, and we need to spend another $10,000 on engineers for the building. This is in regard to the Bureau report. There have never been quotes in writing from those numbers, only numbers. Councilperson Wickerham made a motion to have a workshop with the original parties to discuss the possibilities. This is literally starting over and wasting almost 2 years of work by many dedicated people. So the timeline, 2006, Supervisor Eudicious purchased the property for $163,000. For 10 years, the annual estimated income was $14,000. The property was managed third party minimally maintained. The roof leaks and it's been vacant since January 2020. In 2019, Rush Historical President Linda Henry came before the town to express the RHS was interested in the building. Since then, RHS has been the only entity to submit a written plan. 2020, a committee was formed to look at the possibilities for the house. There were representatives from RHS, library, recreation, seniors, town liaison, and others. COVID caused a shift in the group, but it kept focus. Janet Cruz and I were elected as co-presidents of RHS. Chris Miller, who also represented the seniors, was chair of the committee at this point. By September 2020, Pat Stevens, Recreation, resigned from the committee. The minutes from those things show that Pat Stevens has resigned from the committee, and she had written an email that was addressed to me and to Phyllis, Sumi, Chris Miller, Dan Woolever, Sue Woolever, Dick Schneider, Janet Cruz, Jim Roach, Kirsten Flass, saying yes, she was on the committee. COVID has an impact, but I'll try to reduce this a little bit. She had wanted to build something that had visitors, meeting space for Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, a regulation size gym, an attached kitchen, programs for rentals. I'm often turning rentals away because we are booked with the Eudicious Pavilion. I'm looking to the future Rush and how we could attract a little more families. I'm certainly not looking to have a rec center like the town at Henrietta, and I've done extensive research on prefab buildings to make it more affordable. The base cost for those buildings are $150,000 to $250,000. She says, not millions of dollars. I did not feel that we were at the point of spending more money. So those are no proposals, high cost, no official estimates in writing, let alone a small footprint out there for something that massive with no parking. Second, during this time, Dan Woolever, during this process, it was a town board meeting when Councilperson Woolever suggested asking the residents if they wanted to spend $500,000 to renovate the house or $1.2 million for a recreation center. And that is on the Town of Rush's website. Where did these numbers come from? Both Councilperson Woolever and Wickerham stated publicly they have always wanted to tear the building down. So the committee moved forward with 3 options presented at the town board meeting in 2020. Keep the house and conduct necessary repairs, demolish the house and construct the town recreation center, demolish the house and revert to the area too long. RHS submitted a plan on September 9th with additional plan of 2/6/21. RHS Secretary Sue Swanton has a long history with the Gates Historical Society. She worked with the Bureau and Associates architectural firm, several projects, and RHS had a conversation with them to see if they could help Rush. At the time, Councilperson Lang also contacted them. RHS offered $1,000 towards the price of Bureau doing the report. The town voted to hire them without finding RHS. Parties involved in the loop for the Bureau report were Supervisor Kusi, Secretary to Supervisor Catherine Hankins, Councilperson Dan Woolever, Liaison Town Historian Sumi, RHS Co-Presidents Janet Cruz, and myself, Dave Silversky. The very in-depth report was sent to us and there were follow-up questions. On June 10th, there was an in-person meeting to look upon this. Upon arrival, Pat Stevens of the Rush Recreation Department and Councilperson Phyllis Wickerham appeared, which was odd because they weren't part of that. Pat said, I'm only here to listen and observe. Councilperson Woolever was late and the town board secretary alerted that she had a conflict and could not be there. Supervisor Kusi wasn't there. So Sumi called him. His response to Sue was confusing and only she can say what that was. But the gist of it was he didn't plan to be there. The meeting was a bit awkward because the original group wasn't there and 2 others had shown up with no explanation. I asked if we could go over the questions and Bureau stated they started by going through the report. I'm just trying to hustle here. It's a very in-depth and suggests how things can be done in stages. They did make it very clear that the building is fundamentally solid. Councilperson Wilbur questioned the integrity of the architects and their ability to make such a statement. Councilperson Wickerham questioned why she didn't have any of the information talking about the 1911 committee and what residents may want. The Recreation Department also made some comments. Just a little bit more, but it's quite clear to me that either councilpersons Williver or Wickham wanted to accept the facts, the outcome of the architectural report. The previous town board meeting on July 14th saw these two board members attempt to change the narrative and pull the momentum backward. That's where the meeting ended. Summarized, the Rush Historical Society was formed as a result of the Rush Bicentennial Committee in 2018. RHS believes in Rush residents and our town's rich history, and we pledge to help those who have come forward with ideas and signed our petition in support of saving the town-owned property located at 1911 Rush Scottsville Road. We believe this is an investment in your future as well as the past and present. This is an opportunity not to waste money already spent, but for investment in our heritage. This bodes well with the 2017 charrette, which many of us were part of, that indicates residents wanting to see more activity in the hamlet. If this building can be transformed, it would not only be only one-time static displays of items, but changing themes and displays with programming that all ages can attend at the library. The nightmarish acoustics in the pavilion have garnered complaints from many townspeople. They can't understand what is being said, nor can they carry on a conversation. As an audio expert, I know this is true, having presented and recorded many presentations there. It's just a square reverberant space. I now ask the town board, what is your investment? You can't answer. I've been here since '87, raised a family, spent about $200,000 in local businesses during that time. I own a business, West Rush Media, and I've financially sponsored many local events. I've expanded, remodeled my house, used all local businesses whenever possible, unless I can do the work myself. Schneider Construction, Watson Electric, Udicious and Associates, for siding, Rush Gravel, all the car repair shops, and many more. My wife and I purchased locally produced farm products, rotating over the years, and that's just to name a few. What I tell people is I say, I want to die in Rush, just not yet. Amber, you grew up here. Jerry, you arrived right after me. Our families grew together. We raised our kids together. Dan, your family has a long history. Phyllis and Ryan's not here. You haven't been here that long, so I ask you how invested you are in both current and future history of the town. How many of you have family photos from the past? Maybe grandma's wedding dress, grandpa's tools, great-grandparents' army uniforms? I suggest they all be thrown out and burned them. Why? If you can't see them, touch them, or show the next generation the good and bad of your family history, then why save them? Last part. The board has been invited by the president of the Big Springs Historical Society in Caledonia to visit the Society's museum, and I asked this as well of all the residents of Rush. A recent display has their local residents spotlighted who stood out and volunteered in the community. This is only one example of what can be done here in Rush. Half the battle is getting people to do the work. RHS has already heard from many who have stated they would help with the time and finances to make this reality. It will cost money, but it's much better than stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. These are ballpark numbers, and there are many solutions to reducing costs. Bureau stated that, but I don't think was actually listened to and really heard. This report should be posted on the town website, and everyone read the whole thing thoroughly and objectively. Recently, the town board debated for 20 minutes over the purchase of a laptop with certain software for the code officer to make his job more efficient. Weeks later, the town spent just under $10,000 towards a pickleball court without any discussion. This seems very odd. This roof topic has been kicked down the road for nearly 2 years. The town has a history of roof problems with its properties, the BOCES, Town Hall, Library, and the 1911 problem. Residents are expected to maintain their property. Why is their town hall negligent in this matter of their own properties? What is needed is a clear vision to go forward and demonstrate what this town can be. Thank you for your time.
I'm going to violate my own rules on the first public comment session and ask you to change the part that you reported about why I wasn't at that meeting. The fact is, I wasn't at that meeting because one of the first things I asked Sue Me when she called me was, I said, who's there? And she reported that there were already 2 town board members there. Not being one that wanted to violate the open meetings law and be criticized in the future for that, I said to Sue, go without me, I can't come. It was not what you said, it was everything that I just said. And I'd like you to check that out with Sue.
No, and that's to respond to that. No, I didn't want to put words in your mouth. That came up after with emails, kind of what happened and the conflict. The question more was, why did two people who were not part of it show up? So I understand that you couldn't make it, but it seemed to be kind of just weird all the way around. So that's where I'll leave it. I understand.
Thank you.
Excuse
Would
me,
anyone else
Supervisor
like?
QC, it is 7:20. Our
Oh,
public
we've got a
at
public
7:15.
hearing.
And before I do that, I want to call roll. I know we were confused in the beginning, but I want to call roll.
Do so, please.
Councilman Wilbur,
Here.
Councilman Corbin,
Here.
Councilwoman Wickerham,
Here.
Supervisor QC,
Here.
and Councilman Lang is excused.
Okay, as Town Clerk Busey has correctly informed me, we do have a public hearing for the purpose of hearing public comments on amending the town code to reflect the redesignation of the Environmental Conservation Commission to the Conservation Board. That's a pretty significant change, and we'd like to hear public comments about that.
And I will read the public notice. For the local law 2021 amending chapter 8 of the code of the town of Rush in relation to the redesignation of the Environmental Conservation Commission to the Conservation
I've
Board.
got it here someplace. Oh, thank you. You were ahead of me. All right. Local law number of 2021 amending chapter 8 of the code of the town of Rush in relation to the redesignation of the Environmental Conservation Commission to the Conservation Board. Please take notice. A public hearing will be held by the Rush Town Board at the Rush Town offices, 5977 East Pinnacle Road on Wednesday, July 28, 2021 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of amending the town code to reflect the redesignation of the Environmental Conservation Commission to the Conservation Board. The public will have an opportunity to see and hear the meeting in person or via Zoom video conference. Instructions to access the virtual meeting. I don't think we need it. We are here. The town board meeting, the time, we are here. There's a Zoom. And if you have a comment as a member of the public that you'd like to make on this subject matter, please do so.
Catherine Hankins, 2353 Pinnacle Road. I think this will be a very good move for the board to take. This is really something that most of the community always thought it was the Conservation Board. And when you look at the history of the Conservation Board, they have been very much a partner with the Planning and the Zoning Board and the Town Board, and have given our town some excellent advice and direction. And I think this will be an affirmation of all the work that they have done. So I'm very much for this. Thank you.
I have worked with the Conservation Board for 18 years, and I always wondered why they were the Conservation Commission and not the Conservation Board. So I'm delighted to preside over a meeting that could give them the proper identity. Would anyone else like to speak?
And if there's anyone on Zoom, please enter your name or raise your hand and we will call on you through virtual Zoom. Let me just double check, make sure, see if anyone's there.
Councilwoman Corbin, do you see the two people with their hands raised?
Yes, they were raised for the public comment period, I think, but we will double check with that. See if I can find who they are. Should show them who they are, but it doesn't. Oh, there we go. Sue and Sue Swanton, who are on Zoom. Did you want to speak in the public comment period? I'm sorry, for the public hearing on the Conservation Board?
This is Sue, and I was.
Sue, we see you wanting to speak.
Just during the public comment.
You can unmute yourself.
I am unmuted.
Well, let's, oh, She says she's unmuted.
I don't want to speak now anyway.
Let me see if I turn my microphone up on my computer though.
So
1 second,
she will
Sue.
not, yeah, you can't control it anymore.
Right.
So you have to unmute. Can you unmute her?
She is unmuted, but we can't hear her.
Can she type
Well,
it
she
in
should,
the-
yeah, if she's unmuted, it should come in through, it should come in through the speaker unless there's an issue.
She needs to turn her volume up.
Right, but if my volume goes up, we
There we
get the
Can
feedback.
you turn that off for a second? I think I have.
We're trying something different tonight versus me having the owl hooked up. We're trying over there since I'm not at the planning and zoning board meetings.
Now, Sue, can you talk now?
Yes, I only wanted to say that I wanted to speak during the public comment, so I'm sorry that this took all this time for me to say it. I'm not commenting at this point.
There she is. She's coming down now. That's Sumi, I believe.
It was the computer.
Yes, sue me.
Sue, you said you wanted to speak at the public comment period, not about the conservation board?
Correct.
I see you now. You wrote to me.
We are on the conservation board subject matter. Is that something, Sue, you can hold off until we complete this business segment?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I know Supervisor and Councilman Woolever, the conservation board sent a statement to us. I
Yes.
do have it if you don't.
I had it last week.
I can pull it up if you'd like and read it into the record, or if you have that.
Yes, if you would do that, that would be fine. While you're doing that, there's a lady who would like to come up and speak.
It's also, I'm for the public comment also, not for the environmental.
I'm for the public comment as well. I'm for the public comment as well.
And I am too.
Well, you certainly can come up and speak.
Well, this is the public hearing, not the public comment period. You're waiting to
Oh,
speak
I'm
about
sorry, I
we're on the
misunderstood.
public
Our
hearing.
supervisor asked if everyone, and then was interrupted by the town clerk, and then I didn't get a chance to. So I'm happy I'll do it again.
Any discussion right now will be about the conservation board status change.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sharing the screen with everyone at home so you can see it as well. It says, we would like to express, this is to Supervisor QC from the Rush Conservation Board, copying the town board and Rush Planning Board. We would like to express our sincere appreciation with special thanks to our liaison, Town Council member Dan Woolever, and our strong support for the proposal to designate our committee as an official board of the town of Rush. We hope that this proposal will receive the approval of the town board. As you know, it is a recommendation of New York State regulatory and advocacy groups that the committees devoted to conservation issues be granted board status. By doing so, the town of Rush will be showing its commitment and dedication to conservation of natural resources and to ensuring that these issues are considered when development plans are reviewed. We continue our pledge to work diligently to serve the best interest of the citizens of Rush as we seek to maintain the beautiful environment that we are privileged to enjoy.
Would anyone in the audience here like to comment on this subject matter? Would anyone out and about?
I do not see anyone in the chat wanting to speak during the public hearing at this time on the conservation board.
Okay. How about board members?
I have a couple of questions.
Good.
Okay. The way I understand this, the only section of the current town law that we are changing or amending is the section 2, that is the establishment of the Conservation Commission into a conservation board. Is that correct?
I don't think that's totally correct.
There's essentially 3 changes. One is what you described. The second is an additional subsection on reviewing applications that relate to open space area that might be designated under our town's open space index,
Right.
Which tracks the statutes that the enabling legislation for a conservation board. So that has been added into their charge.
Okay.
And then the third is the compensation component,
Okay.
which is
So-
set on a yearly basis.
Okay. So the membership clause is going to stay the same, where it still will have 5 members appointed by the board,
Correct.
The town board, and that they will have expiring terms that are staggered. Thank you very much for that word. The officers' meetings, rules and regulations will stay the same. So that means that there will be a chairman, and at the first meeting, the commission will elect a recording secretary. The recording secretary's job will be to take the minutes. So this board will not require the duty of the deputy clerk to come in and do recording of those.
That is correct.
Okay, the powers and the duties will stay the same. They will advise the town board on matters affecting the preservation. They'll develop and after receiving general approval, conduct programs of information, conduct studies, maintain up-to-date inventory, seek to coordinate, assist, and unify efforts of groups, maintain liaison and communications with the public and privates, working in cooperation with the planning board, recommending from time to time the town board features, prepare, print, and distribute books, maps, obtain and maintain in orderly fashion maps, reports, books. When authorized by resolution of the town board, the commission, the board, thank you, may accept by gift or otherwise property, both real and personal, and carry out such other duties as assigned from time to time by the town board. Those are still in effect. Being new to the town board, I don't know that I have ever, and I've been in the town of Rush for almost 9 years and in the area for 35. I don't know that the commission ever did any of these duties. I would like to at least figure out whether that particular clause still holds true for their duties. And then the reports, they're supposed to provide an annual report to the town board. Do we get that? Because it says it was supposed to be delivered no later than the first day of February. I don't remember.
We don't get reports from the planning board, the zoning board, the code enforcement officer. So it's all there. They all should be doing it, but they are not.
Well, and so why are we not doing something about that? Either taking that out of the law,
it's
or
still
Still
in there.
valid.
Okay. It's still valid.
Right.
The
So-
only thing we're changing are those 3 items
Okay.
to make them
Okay.
compensated.
okay.
And
And
to,
constructual
we
provision.
took out the building inspector part
Okay.
as
Yes.
we talked
Yes.
last. So
Yeah.
the changes you're
And-
asking were not proposed last
Okay.
week. So
And
weeks
the
ago.
one question you did ask was about the 45 days. And my notes on that were that because it read within 45
Right.
days of receipt,
I looked at the
it fit-
calendar and
and it
I talked to
fits.
Attorney Mancuso.
and it fits. So that was the reason when you had that question in your email to him. So that was that. I'm just trying to get a very clear picture of what this board is going to be charged with. And from, going forward, it's something that needs to be monitored according to what we are putting into law.
And if you monitor all boards, not just this.
I mean, if that is part of their,
It's in the organizational minutes for all boards.
Oh,
Same with
yeah,
the code
absolutely.
enforcement officer.
absolutely, I agree with that.
That was a very lengthy question, Dan. Would you like to respond, considering that you are the liaison to the Conservation Board?
They review plans and their impact on the environment.
Last part?
And the impact on the environment of different plans submitted to the zoning board and the planning board. That's what they've been doing as long as I can remember.
Any other comments? Deputy?
No, I am in favor of making them a board. They've done the role, the job, and they need to be recognized. And in the world that we live in right now, with what's going on with environmental issues, it's important that we have a board that reviews those items.
As you heard at the start, I support this change. I read the material probably because I've been associated with them for many, many years. I don't see any change, major change. And they've basically been doing all this stuff to begin with. So we need a vote.
Well,
We need a
so if there's-
resolution.
If there's no other public comment, then I would recommend closing the public hearing. And then if the board is in favor of adoption, I will draft a resolution for that to be adopted at the next board meeting.
All right. Then I do, on the advice of council, close the public hearing. And ask for the
Motion to
town
close
clerk
the second.
to take a board vote after you second my.
I'll second it. We'll both second it. We'll all second it.
Councilman Oliver,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wickerham,
Aye.
Supervisor Cusie.
Aye.
So is there no change to the current proposed law? We're gonna keep the 45 days as is?
Mhm.
Okay,
Within 45.
within 45 days, yes. And I will draft a resolution if that is the board's desire.
We need a vote.
Nope,
No.
I can just draft it and I'll
We
have it ready
agreed
for the
to
next meeting.
adjourn the session, but we didn't take a vote on it.
Yes, Pam just did.
Yeah, we did.
Oh.
We seconded.
Pam did it behind her screen. That's okay, I guess. Thank you very much.
We have
Move.
some people in the chat.
Yep.
Supervisor, about the public comment period continuation.
We can move back to that public comment period. Again, we are focused on the 1911 house. If you have a comment to make about the 1911 house, please get up, identify yourself, your address, and make your comment. And that goes for people in the chat room also. I would like to hear everyone's comment.
And what we've been doing, Supervisor, I think that worked well. We had one person from the audience, one person from Zoom, back and forth. So
That works for me.
Chris, I'm sorry, Chris Miller was the first one on the chat. Chris, if you would unmute yourself, give your name and your address. And
Chris
share.
Miller, 2237 Pinnacle Road. And I would like to talk about the 1911 Rush-Scottsville Road Committee. The committee was started by Victoria Mercetti in March of 2020. The first Zoom meeting was March the 24th, and 12 individuals were inviting and 8 attended. We covered what we hope to get out of the meeting, what were our wildest hopes and dreams for the 1911 house, what is something that we were most proud of about being a resident of Rush, and something that has worked well in the past on previous committees and previous discussion regarding the 1911 Rush-Scottsville Road house. The action plan was developed after comments from the committee. The major themes were financial information, a timeline, short-term and long-term plan, utilization plan, delay in decision-making is impacting the residents, costing taxpayers dollars, and grant funding possibilities. The second meeting was held on March the 31st. 8 members attended. There was an action plan. We reviewed the charrette, the comprehensive plan, all available financial documents and estimates. We looked through previous repairs and figured out what documents were missing, or tried to figure out. The third meeting was held on April the 14th, and again, 8 members attended. And input was solicited from the Rush seniors. The action plan at this time was financial estimates and documents were requested, and there was no follow-up at that point from the town board, Dan Williver or Todd Ewell. The committee members tried to collect estimates from previous repairs. The net profit in 2019 was $5,636.67. We wanted to know where this money went, what was the cost of utilities and maintenance. Profit reported from rent in 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 totaled $52,338.48. Where did this money go? We need to establish the role of the management company. The committee investigated the possible new build at a cost of $52 million. Kristen reported that the Hamlin Library update was $1.2 million. There was an asbestos inspection report that came out in October of 2017. We viewed that. There was a demolition estimate on April the 24th, 2020, and that was $24,620. Over the years, 2015, 2016, resolutions and discussions concerning replacement of windows, insulation, and energy saving options were received from the board, but there was no follow-up. The 1911 plan short-term requested approval to seek estimates for renovation or demolition and development for a specification sheet for contractors. The long-term plan was develop a town interest survey and a utilization plan for the building. After the April 14th Zoom meeting, Victoria stopped being the facilitator. So there were no meetings until July the 28th. Again, these were all Zoom meetings. Building inspector John Limbeck was invited to inspect the house, and Dan Willover reported on the septic system. On August the 18th, there was another Zoom meeting, and the report was submitted by John Limbeck. Kristen shared also an asbestos report from 2017. September 1st of 2020, a Zoom meeting was conducted and a proposal from the Rush Historical Society was submitted. On September the 17th, a Zoom meeting was conducted and the 1911 Rush Scottsville Road House Progress Report was on the town board agenda. On October the 5th, the Zoom meeting was conducted. Finance report from Dan Clement for repairs since purchase was $23,592.74. Cost of utilities for 2020 to that date, October 5th, was $2,147.40, and the cost for utilities budgeted for 2021 was $2,500. The committee visited the house and did a walkthrough, and on 11/2, the 1911 committee report was delivered to the town supervisor and the town board, and the committee was ended. That's all I have.
Chris?
Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment on the 1911 house?
And Sue Swanton, you will be next after this gentleman who is getting up to speak in person.
Hi, everyone. I'm gonna get one of these here.
And then you can state your name and address for the people at home.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jim Cole, and I'm best known for owners of Colby's. Also, I've renovated and turned the wedding barn at the corner into a successful business for a few years. I also renovated a complete farmhouse and barns in Scottsville known as Cobblestone. It's the #1 wedding barn in Western New York. And I also partnered with Jim Jarris down at Jarris Wadsworth Estate, one of the Wadsworth mansions down in Caledonia. I also developed a house just similar to that into my insurance agency in 2008. I've done all kinds of development across the county for the past 45 years. So I have a little bit of experience on dealing with that type of a situation, the 1911 house. I have a different vision, being a person that has lived here since 1996. and operated 2 businesses, actually 3 in the town. And I'm looking forward towards what the next millennium people are looking for. And I also looking forward to the people in this community to have an improved town that is not known for the park and ride at the corner of 390 and the Creekside. I want to develop this into a town that every resident is proud of, and every resident wants their friends and people to come and see. The 9/11 house is, I think, the beginning of the future of the town. It is an old house. I have the exact same house. It's a balloon framed house. That means it's a big fire hazard. If there's a fire in it, the thing burns down really quick because of the construction of it. So if that is to be safe, like in the town of Greece, it has to have a sprinkler system put in it, which is tens of thousands of dollars. That's one factor. There's other factors to it too, size, usage by others, and it's pretty much, as I call it, a clubhouse for the Historical Society. That is not going to benefit the whole of the town of Rush. It's going to benefit about 1% or less. There's, according to the old census, there's 3,478 residents in this town. That property is a prime piece of property that 13,000 cars go by a day. It should be used to promote this town. And the town should have a Rush Town Center. A steel frame building that is low cost. It doesn't have to be really extravagant. It could be simply hooked with a walkway to the library and to the town hall. It could be used for historical presentations, just like if you drive down to Geneseo, you can see they have a beautiful historical presentation. There's other towns in Greece has something similar. There's other towns in the area use that the majority of the people in the town over the course of a year or 2 would see. That is an important thing. I'm also concerned about the cost of it. I've heard higher estimates from them, lower estimates, where it is. Mainly, it'll cost, from my experience, $200,000 to make that into anything. When you get done with it, all the sewer and everything else, because all have to be updated, the plumbing, the handicap, the ramps, all this sort of stuff, the town will be on the hook for 10 years for $200,000. I see that, even with the cost of, they said $53,000. Repairs, like I just said, the advantage of the town center, it's a revitalization of the hamlet. It doesn't need sewers. John Felsen beat the hell out of me when I did the wedding barn, and we can handle 400 people in the wedding barn, and the sewer system is 3 times the size of this room. So there's no issues with sewers. There's water here, there's gas here. It can be very easily made as far as utilities up to date. The return of the community pride. People will start talking about Rush again. The town center, it'll be something that people can come to for activities, for social events, for recreation leagues. We can make it into a multi-purpose room. So the basketball league, which was in this building, can come back to this town and bring back the women and men that are recreational oriented, which the millennials are, and bring them to here so that they're not going to Henrietta or other locations to exercise and do things and reunite them as a community. The senior center, the seniors, I believe, meet over in the Rush Fire Department. It's a great place. I love the town of Rush Fire Department. I give them lots of money every year. I support them for every event that they ever come to me for. But it would be nice for them to have a more formal center that they can feel it's them. If we build like a town center here, we could start with just the main thing, and then we could build off sections of it, planned off sections as the money comes available, that sort of thing. Also rental income. I heard someone tonight say about the pavilion. The pavilion sells out like all the time. What if we had 2 of those? We gain a little bit more income from that. Also make this so the townspeople, like in Henrietta, get first dib on it. So that way, no one else from around can call it, it's the townspeople first. That's the rule for it. Then the next question was cost. Also the historical society, again, display. The fire department, a display for our great fire department. They got all kinds of stuff too. Also, fit a coffee shop in there. Doesn't have to be great. but I sure like to go someplace for a cup of coffee in town here besides 7-Eleven, which it has no character, and it's nowhere that we can all meet and discuss ideas and create the town image. A Winter's Farmers Market. There's only one in Rochester. It's in Brighton, and they kill. If we had a small Winter's Farmers Market just for the Chases, for the Warners, and a couple of the other people, and they had every Saturday for 2-3 hours, people coming in, that would help their income through the year. Okay, how do we pay for it? There's town reserves. There's some, whatever it is, that's a help. There is U.S. Agriculture Department gives tons of grants for farmers markets, community centers, all that sort of thing. My other vision too is temporarily the space across the street should be used for a farmer's market. It could be like a Thursday or Saturday. We lease the property from the present owner with a in their agreement that when he goes to develop it or renovate it, the few shanties, or not shanties, but the pavilion comes down and he gets to use the property, whatever he wants. So it would benefit people coming to the town with a town center, a farmer's market on one evening or Saturdays, and help, again, priority would be the local farmers here would get the spots, and then anybody else would fill in after that. And it would clean up the hamlet and make it more presentable, and everybody start talking about it. The other area is state grants. I would go after state grants. I know how to do that kind of stuff. I'd be happy to go after what it takes for a package from the government to get money to do this. They would be happy to do it. The Foster Brooks area, okay, we're gonna make them put 5-acre homes in. There's still gonna be 30, 40 homes up there. That's gonna be income coming into the town. Why not spend that for the whole community to benefit? This would be the way to do it. Also, I am 100% behind Jack Moore's development, because you think of the tax income that's going to come from that, from the people from the interstate all around the country stopping to fill up the gas and get a cup of coffee in that, that's going to directly bring money into the town coffers. So that little thing of maybe a convenient mart at that spot, and the traffic is not an issue because they get off and on within 100 feet of that space. The other thing is, another area that could be lobbied is the state industry. I don't know if you all know it, but it's empty. There's not a kid in it, except for in the high prison one where they keep the deaf kids, the kids that killed people in that. The rest of it, there's one guard in there all day. You know why do I know? Because I've been driving by it every 2-3 days, twice, 3-4 times a day, and all of a sudden, all the cars disappeared. And then they told me that, 2 years ago, they emptied out the place, and it was just the employees there twiddling their thumbs. So that whole unit that is including sewage system could be sold to a private entity, maybe a college, maybe a developer, develop a homing project or townhouse projects. That would be a huge amount of money. And it is in a corner that wouldn't really affect the town much at all as far as our livelihood and that sort of thing. I am not a big proponent of sewers. I'm only a proponent of sewers if they are not public sewers. Public sewers we have to pay for. But if they're private sewers, that's the person that put them in is gonna pay for them and maintain them and everything else. So this is my vision of this little piece of Rush. I'll be sending out mailers in the near future because I'm running for a town board, and I will let people know exactly how I feel. I'm very, very happy to be a town resident. I love this town, but I think it needs to make sure that it stays the way it is and not be overrun by someone like Amazon someday or the federal government. Because the federal, if you look through the new federal infrastructure bill, there's billions of dollars for them to come into our town, just like they did the Horseshoe, and build a low-income housing project, and you can't stop them. So if we have no direction, no vision, they will run right in here and you will have nothing to say, just like the Horseshoe Project. So let's all get together and let's make this a town that's strong and we're all together and unified. Thank you very much, and I love Rush.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else from the, no, we've got someone from the.
Susan Swanton, if you would unmute yourself and turn your video on.
Okay, it should be unmuted, and I've turned on my video. Okay.
There you are.
Okay. All right. Very interesting presentation. I want to talk about the 1911 house as well. But first, I want to thank the town board for the owl that you're using to help those of us who watch from home see the whole of the town board and the whole of the audience there. So I do hope you keep up with OWL. It's really good for those of us who don't drive at night. So thank you. One of the things that I wanted to also comment about is the Bureau report. Bureau Architecture is a firm that I'm very familiar with. I have seen several of their site reports. I actually got one on the house that I'm in now because they give you your priorities. And this house is really in good shape. If you look at their checklist on page 20, you will see that they do not have anything in category 1, which is essential, life safety, and immediate stabilization. But they do have priority 2. Priority 2 is work, which can be deferred, but is needed for long-term stabilization and longevity of the building. There was a figure of $71,000, which is the total cost that they estimate for the repairs that are needed. But the total for the 40 is $41,000 for the roof, which is their big number 2 category that needs to be dealt with. Remember when you're looking at their figures that they are giving you the union rates. And if we work a public-private partnership with the Rush Historical Society, we may have the chance as a historical society, and I'm speaking as the secretary who has done this with the Gates Historical Society. I'm secretary for them now too. Barrow gave us a quote at the Gates Historical Society for $84,000 to replace the fence at the Hinchy Homestead, which is owned by the town of Gates. We were able to get it completely rebuilt for $14,700. So as a private organization, we don't have to pay the prevailing wage. That's something you should carry in your own mind, is that there are alternatives to the high rates of pay that the Barrow report might cite in their report. And I'm glad you're going to be dealing with the Meadowood question. Their rezoning. I will stay as long as I can to answer any questions you might have when you get to that on your agenda. And I'll have one little comment about the Moore rezoning, because I see that's on the agenda too. And that is, us seniors have problems getting down Route 15. And let's not make it any more difficult to get down that road with more big trucks coming through there. So thank you very much for listening. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Catherine Hankins, 2353 Pinnacle Road. I have had some direct dealings with the 1911 house and was responsible for trying to get bids and proposals for that, not only for the architect, but also for the roof.
It's louder, please.
I'm sorry.
I don't think that works.
I don't think it's working.
Yeah, it might be only the owl work.
Oh,
Yeah, we don't have.
okay, so I'll do my cheerleader voice. So I've been involved with this project, and I am very concerned. At the last meeting, the Barrow architecture report was not fully considered and was sadly dismissed. The lack of respect for a well-respected firm in our community was surprising, unwarranted, and I believe unprofessional. They met their obligation and responded to the questions that the board had asked. It was the first phase of their proposal. And in my estimation, they did a thorough and respectable job for our community and for the board. It should be noted that Council Member Lang referred Barrow Architecture for consideration after consultation with an engineering firm that he knew and who he relayed the concerns of the board. They wanted to have information before they went forward with repairing the roof. He said the firm came with very good references and that they would give us the answers we need. On November 24th, all of the council members, except for Council Member Lang, were in favor of moving forward to repair the roof with the understanding, let's repair it, and then let's look further down the road to see what we should be doing. Quotes for the roof were undertaken. Even at that time, we knew it was a balloon construction, and there are ways to mitigate that balloon construction. I too have been in construction for over 30 years. I've done estimates. I've also been responsible for an old mansion on East Avenue. I have very, very long experience in renovation and in new home construction. And so I know cost, and I had done some bids on this as well, and very much in line with what Barrow Construction did. The quotes for the roof were undertaken. We had a quote for about $15,000 from a local contractor. And that proposal that attorney Mancuso helped me draft, we included that there was an asbestos report that indicated that the asbestos did not have to be abated because of Environmental Protection Agency. It did not come close to it. So Councilman Lang was successful in his request to seek confirmation that the building was worth saving before those repairs were undertaken. The request for review asked two questions. Is the building worth saving? And equally important, could the building be suitable to meet the goals and needs of the Rush Historical Society? Everything else was off the table. That was what the proposal was. That's what the board voted on. And the answers to both of those questions came back, I think in April, saying yes. Yes. Yes to the house is stable. Yes to the house is salvageable. And the answers were yes. So then what happened? The town needs to move forward and fix the roof, the windows, and the insulation. Beyond these basic goals, they can transfer this property with a lease to the Rush Historical Society. I agree with Councilman Wooliver. We don't want a money pit over there. We can transfer it to the Historical Society. We have done that for the Monroe County Fair, the New York State Transportation Museum, the Rochester and Genesee Valley Railroad Museum. We have done and been partners with them. We can do that for the Rush Historical Society. We can help them with the surplus funds we have generated from the rental of this building. Both Barrow included a second phase that the town board can now authorize. We only paid $1,000 for a site visit. And I'm telling you, an afternoon, if you know what you're doing, is more than adequate to see what's in that building. We don't have to get behind the walls to see whether there's holes in the roof. That was what we asked for, and that's what we got. Now, if the Rush Historical Society wants more of an interior design, we can do that. And they can do that for us for another $1,800. But we don't need blueprints. Only if you're going to do major renovations or you're going to end up with an addition. When you look at the history of this building, it cost $800 to do a little drawing. I have worked with architects for the last 30 years. To build a brand new building over there would be less than $5,000 for an architect to build a new house. As Councilman Member Wooliver reported, this building has been neglected by the town boards, previous town boards. We are a town of contractors and builders. We can get many of the needed interior renovations done for little or no funds. I wrote this without knowing that you said that too. But we've been in business for over 30 years in this town, and we have always used local contractors. And the contractor that bid successfully to do the roof here is a local contractor, and he would have done it within a few days. But no, we stopped and derailed that process and started to go back to what are we going to do with the building. We can get the accessibility and other features the same way the town was able to build the pavilion and the town park through community block grants, surplus funds, and Rochester Historical Society, just like Sue Swanton just said, through donations. Sadly, Council Member Wooliver mistakenly reported that the cost to repair the roof alone would be more than $70,000. That's not what the Barrow report said. If you look closely, just like Sue Swanton said, they multiplied all of their estimates by a factor of 1.79. We already had 3 quotes from reputable firms long before the Bureau did his report. Now, at the last meeting, Councilmember Lang said we have to worry about mold and mildew. I brought that up in November and said, no, we don't have to worry about that. So we are helping this building deteriorate. I expressed those fears of mold and mildew at that time, and he assured me no, the delay would be brief and would not cause any further deterioration. We had to keep the heat on at an exorbitant cost. We already have an asbestos report, and we know that we don't have to do abatement of asbestos. It's not warranted. We should fix this roof now. And so I have a few other facts. In 2001, there was a referendum for a large recreation center, and it failed. After the proposition was defeated, the proposal was changed, and the town park and the town hall renovations were undertaken with a bond for $1.4 million, plus grants and tax dollars to support the building of the pavilion. The purchase of the land alone cost $200,000 with a grant from VOPE. They got accessible bathrooms, a parking lot, playground, and fields. It was done in phases. There is no room. Once that proposition failed, there is no room for a new recreation center over there. There's no room. We would have to do setbacks. There is no room. It's only about a half an acre once you take everything out. There's no room. There's no room for a recreation center, even if the community wanted one. There is not sufficient space now that the land was redesigned. And even if there was room, there is no demonstrated need right now. There's been no indication that seniors want a dedicated senior center, no indication that they are unhappy with meeting at the fire department, no indication that they want an area for lunches, or no demonstrated need that the Rush Scouts want to abandon their current home on Rush Mendon Road. And there's no indication that we have ever realized the initial vision that our town hall would be a multi-use building. This room is used for 5 meetings a month, and our court often has only 4 court sessions a month. Town board, when this building was built, it was going to be a multi-use building. We haven't realized that. The pavilion is not fully used. Town board members can review the pavilion calendar and see that the calendar is not filled with recreation. The weekends are filled with rentals, very inexpensive rentals. That would be prime time for recreation if there was a need, if we had the staff, if we had the programs, if we weren't in competition with other programs. And I raised 2 children in this town, and they want to be with their friends. They want to be with the kids that they go to school with. And so we have to become, we're a bedroom community in many respects. If you go to school in Honeoye Falls, you want to go to Honeoye Falls. If you have kids in Rush Henrietta, you want to go to Rush Henrietta. And your children want to be in the programs where their friends are. A gymnasium for a basketball court would require a minimum of 6,600 square feet. This building is valued currently by our town assessor, who just did a community-wide reassessment for $150,000. Now that might not seem a lot of money to some people, but it's a lot to me. It's taxpayer monies that would have to be used to tear it down. We can use the income from what we've generated to make that a valuable public property. It was said that the building only has 1,200 square feet on the first floor. That's more than sufficient to relocate and store our historical artifacts. The pavilion only has 1,428 square feet. The library extension that was built for about $500,000 during the town hall renovation has only 1,800 square feet. Now it has a full foundation. Councilmember Wickerham reported that a net total of $52,338 over the past 3 years. I found the funds that were received from Marsh property statements from 2007 to 2017. These reports indicated that there was $173,000 received from Marsh properties. I have to find the information for the utilities that may be deducted, but a review of the leases said that in the beginning, the tenants paid for the utilities. So I have to do some more screening, but even at $5,000 a year or $6,000 a year for utilities, there's a lot of money in the funds. Now, the other comment was that it went into general operating and it's been long gone spent. No, our unexpended balance has continued to grow over the last 16 years without ever having to use that money to balance our budget in the general operating fund. So there is a lot of money in the general operating fund balance. So these are non-tax dollars that can be used to help stabilize this building and put a good roof on it. Last, this building is close to 100 years old. As one person said, it's been around for a while, but 100 years, this building has some history to it. Well, Rush Historical Society has not requested any historical designation. They could, when you look at the rules. And if they have the designation, then the New York State law says it's protected from demolition by neglect. There's a statute that they created because there were too many municipalities who were letting properties go just because they didn't like them, just because they didn't want them. So it's called demolition by neglect, which occurs when buildings have deteriorated to the point of collapse or where significant architectural features are damaged because of the neglect of officials. This is a matter of conscience and common sense. It has nothing to do with putting other projects on the table that could be very, very important, could be very valuable. We could put it over at the Big M. We could put it at the Rush Riverside Refuge. We could put it down the street. This is about protecting a building in the hamlet. And it's to align with what we said when we had the charrette. This show is already on the road. There's a lot of people who have invested their time and effort to do this. The town board was receiving more than sufficient funds to protect this building. All public property should be kept in good repair. It's an obligation under the public trust doctrine. You're not supposed to just let it fall apart. The town board over the past decade has been negligent in abandoning their responsibility to protect and preserve this building. Perhaps because they had ulterior motives, I don't know. There are features on this building that are historically and architecturally valued, and the past town board should be held accountable. And the current town board should take on the responsibility and address the neglect of this building and start to make it right. And they should do it now. Where we've had rains since April, it was assured to me, and I'm sorry that I would never speak to Councilman Lang if he's not here, but he assured me. I have emails to say, don't worry, because we're going to move quickly. I had the YouTube video saying, I'm ready to have this roof repaired. That's 9 months ago. I can't believe I have to be at my town board begging for someone to take care of this building. And I worked with Councilmember Wooliver. I enjoyed working with him, but I was shocked to see that his report for the Bureau report was almost to the point where I was worried that they might sue us, because they are reputable. I never heard of them before this event, but they stepped up to the plate. They were very, very responsible, and we should do with the right thing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hankins. How about the chat room?
Yes, we have. Sue Me, did you want to speak?
Yes, please.
Go right ahead, Sue.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, I'm Susan Mee. I'm the town historian. I'm also a resident. I was also a member of the 1911 House Committee. My address is 747 Phelps Road. I have lived in Rush a long time, since the 4th grade in 1967. My family moved here. I have found the people of Rush to have always been very proud of their town's history, its past, its people, both the past and the present, and that those are the people that have built this town and lived their lives here. Over the years, we have lost a significant number of buildings in the hamlet and throughout the town. Some of this loss has been due to natural causes such as fire, but right in the hamlet, we've also lost multiple houses because they have been demolished, just simply torn down for other uses. If we want the hamlet of Rush to be nothing more than a stretch of Route 15A, then we can continue to tear down additional buildings. However, if we want this area to hold a sense of character and community, as the 2017 charrette indicated that people do want, then I think we need to be very careful about any additional decisions that result in the demolition of older buildings that add character to our hamlet. As a tax-paying resident, I appreciate the board's judicious concern with the expenditure of taxpayers' dollars. That said, I also think there's significant discrepancy in the quoted dollar amounts that have been referenced in past meetings, as others have mentioned already tonight. Actual written estimates comparing estimated repairs equally apples to apples, if you will, need to be confirmed. Verbal estimates hold little value when making these types of decisions. The Barrow report provided a prioritized list of repairs, and that too differs from what has been mentioned in earlier meetings. I also think that before a decision is made to demolish the 1911 house, the tax-paying residents of this town need to be surveyed regarding what they would like in that location and what they would actually use. I know from my years at RIT and working with students, many will say they want a particular service or facility, but that does not necessarily mean that they actually intend to use it or that service or the resource. Wanting and using are two different questions. Are the taxpayers willing to spend $1 million+ to demolish the existing house and build a new facility? That is the figure that the 1911 committee identified as a cost for demolition and a new prefab building that would require some sort of foundation or a pad for it to be placed upon, mechanics, interior finishing, and that does not include the additional cost of requiring more staff and increased insurance for the activities that would take place within such a building. If Rush builds it, will it be utilized? If we tear down the 1911 house without knowing what the community definitively wants, then we are operating on assumptions, and a big disservice will have been done to the people of Rush. On a final note, I'd like to add that I've been told by a number of people that they would be willing to help offset some of the repair costs of the 1911 house if it were designated for the use of the Rush Historical Society. I've had residents tell me they would be happy to pay for the cost of a door, a window, multiple windows, etc., and to also help with the actual work involved in renovating the interior space to provide meeting, presentation, and display spaces. Maybe community involvement is just what is needed to help bring us together in working toward a common goal. We are a small town, the smallest in Monroe County. We are neighbors and friends, and for some of us, our parents and grandparents also lived here and they were friends. We can have our differences, but we can still work together toward common goals. Let this issue not divide us, but instead be an opportunity to recognize the history and the rich past of our town, while also providing space for our present day residents to gather and to work together. I do not intend any disrespect with my comments, but I hope we can do with the 1911 house what the town board originally intended when they voted to purchase the property several years ago. And let's not continue to be one of only 2 towns in Monroe County without a house dedicated to their town's history. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you. I gotta talk louder, right? Janet Cruz. I am, as Dave had mentioned earlier, co-president of the Rush Historical Society. I'm gonna be real brief.
Address, Janet.
I'm sorry?
Address.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1186 West Rush Road.
Thank you.
Just real brief. I want to bring people back to the bicentennial celebration in 2018. The committee, our group got together, the bicentennial committee, and planned activities each month during that celebration. We found that there was a great deal of participation and interest from the community in the history of Rush. It was a very successful year. And from that, our historical society was born. Shortly after the Historical Society started meeting, the opportunity, the thought of the 1911 house being something that might be something that the Historical Society could use, got put into our brain. We began to think about that. And we got real excited about that. We have a great vision. We do have a vision of it as a welcome center, as the gateway to the community. We do think that it's an opportunity for other people to enjoy and take part in. We think if we're celebrating the history of Rush and we're doing it loud there on the corner, inviting people in, we do think that we'll have a lot of interest and a lot of participation. That just might be our committee thinking that, but from what we saw from the bicentennial celebration, we believe that people are interested in preserving our history.
Thank you, Janet. How about the chat room?
Chat room, Joanne Scanlon, would you like to unmute and speak? Give us your address as you know so well.
Joanne Scanlon, 1633 Rush, Henrietta Town Line Road. I would just like to say a couple of things. I think, you know, we talk about historical buildings. This building is old. It's 100 years old. Well, you know, my building, my house is 70 years old. You know, it's almost 100, and I see no historical, you know, value to it. It's my home. I love it, but that's it. I think the cost to not only get this up to stuff. I mean, the roof leaks, the interior ceilings and stuff have been damaged by the water, the plumbing, the electrical work. It's just, you know, it's 100-year-old house. It's going to require maintenance. Everyone knows, you know, the older a house gets, the more expensive it gets to be to maintain it. I do not feel like this is a good use of the town's money. I think, you know, we have an opportunity to provide more to the community than just a house dedicated to the Historical Society for the most part. I have been down to Caledonia to their museum, and I have to say, you know, most times when I'm down there, there's nobody else there except volunteers. So yes, initially people are going to be interested in, but how often are they going to come back? And we don't get a lot of tourists here in Rush. So how is that, you know, that's not certainly going to attract many people. So I think that the value is not there. Yes, we have to respect the past. And I believe wholeheartedly in that, but we also have to look to the future. What is our vision for the future? The gentleman from Colby's, I can't remember his name, he's right. You know, we put in a nice recreational facility, and Phyllis gave us some quotes, you know, kind of an idea, a ballpark idea last meeting about a prefab. And there's nothing wrong with that. They can be done in different designs to make it look in character with our town, but it would be much more flexible space so that we can do different things. I mean, how about, you know, social dances once a month, or, you know, you can think all sorts of different things by using a large space that you would never be able to do in that house. A coffee shop, I have been dreaming of a coffee shop for years. If I had the money, I'd buy the old Big M spot and put one in. But, you know, there is no place to gather as a community in Rush. And if we really value our community and our relationships, we need to do something to encourage people meeting. I had a conversation with Amber where, you know, I've been here over 20 years. I don't know a lot of my neighbors. You know, you just don't, you know, you're separated by so much land that you don't have the opportunity to really get to know them well unless you have kids and, you know, meet their parents. You know, so this would give us an opportunity to come together as a community, to do activities as a community and focus on now and what's going to happen in the future. I think it makes the most sense as a town and as part of our vision and our future. And I think it makes sense for our residents to have opportunities to be able to come together. So thanks.
Thank you, Joanne. How about in this audience? I've been there, Dan.
Bill, you will be after Mary Ann Rizzo.
Hi, Mary Ann Rizzo, 25 Stoll Road. I really hope you allow the Historical Society to use the 1911 home. I saw in one of the presentations by the Rush Historical Society a Photoshop. It was a kind of dream of how that house could look someday. And I thought it was beautiful. I thought it had potential. I hear now from the Bureau report that it does have potential, and it's an asset to our town, and it can only get better. I hope you all vote to put a roof on it. The Bureau firm evaluated that it was viable. Let's save it. Let's save it. Let's have a vision, and let's have a little faith. The Historical Society, you know what, I meant to take this off. The Historical Society needs the space to exhibit artifacts and share research and gather with the community. This is a rich heritage that can be fully integrated into our town. This is our opportunity. Here we have an organization and volunteers willing to write grants, help our town, and preserve the history of Rush. We have this asset, the 1911 house. It's worth preserving. Please help them help our town. Help them help us. I want to say thank you to the Historical Society members. I don't know who you all are, but thank you. And on another note, I was truly inspired when I went to the Livingston County Historical Society Museum in Geneseo twice last year. I did mention this at a board meeting. I hope you will visit, and if you've already been there, I hope you visit again. And their goal is to connect the community with history. If you go there, I think you will understand the importance of having a gathering and exhibition space for the Historical Society. We also have a lot of artifacts. Where are they? I did get up to the 3rd floor last year. And the 3rd floor is cramped with attic. It's like an attic type space where they're boxed in and here and there. But our town deserves more. This new space for the Historical Society will promote community in our special town. Having an exhibition space and a meeting space for Rush history and artifacts will be a wonderful place for the community to gather, to get to know each other and explore. Please support it. Let's save it. Let's have a little faith. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. How about the chat room?
Bill Darren, would you like to speak? Unmute yourself. Give us your name and address.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, how you doing? Welcome to the beautiful corner of 7-Eleven and Dunkin' Donuts in beautiful Fair Lawn, New Jersey. I kind of wanted to do this to show you that it only costs you about $400 to make it so that all of us out here in internet land can have a beautiful and lovely experience that is better than the one we're having now, where it's kind of choppy and kind of miserable. I would hope that maybe you could find some money in the budget to come up with a way to get a nice mesh-based Wi-Fi system that costs, I would say, less than $1,000 all in, so that your signal would be beautifully transmitted to all of us out here in internet land. Look, here's one of those transmitters now doing its job. And the idea would be that all the people in this town could get together and have a better experience having meetings. You may be hedging on the idea of having a communal space for all of us to get together, but I think it's really, really important that you start to figure out in the future how to do something that we used to do in the past in that town hall. Sit together, have a good time, sit down and talk about all the issues that have to be discussed. These endless board meetings that go on and on and on forever with no resolution are counterproductive. It doesn't seem like anything ever gets done. No one ever decides on anything. No one ever commits to getting a number that we need in order to get some decisions on how to finish things. And what people have been saying here, I think, and is really important, is that you have to remember that we live in the present, we dream of the future, and we learn eternal truths from the past. The past is important. I think it's a great thing that we keep up with it. Grandpa's here on the wall, and I sold all the stuff to prove it. The end result is that I think people in town need to have some way of getting together. I think the Historical Association or the Society to Preserve All the History is a great way to maybe do a look and feel, but I don't think it should be the predominant reason why you build a space for the town to get together. The Odysseus Pavilion is a terrible place to sit. It's not convenient or cozy or comfortable. You need something that's, like everyone has said here, a coffee house or a little communal space where they can sit. You can study maps and look over the town and figure out what you want to do in the future. Use the past as the springboard to get there, but don't concentrate so much on the past that you forget about where you want to go. I too have been reading over the charrette, and there's a couple of things that I found that's very interesting. First off is that it seems that it's close to 7,000 cars go through the village or the hamlet of East Rush every day. 7,000 cars. How in the world can anybody create any kind of a bike path, walkable path, kind of, friendly situation that would be coexisting with 7,000 cars a day? And that's based on probably statistics from 2 or 3 years ago. That's not a problem anybody's going to solve on a Zoom conference. It's going to be solved because everybody can go and sit down in a room and talk. And you guys, all of you guys, have to figure out how to do this quickly. I've been posting it There's a document from 1969 that discussed what they wanted to do with the Quinn House. 1969, we're not talking about 2006 or whenever it is that she said that this place was built. This has been an idea that's been kicked around this town for over 50 years and no one has done anything about it. It's really pretty sad. I guess the last piece to remember is that, you know, people are gregarious in nature and they all need to get together. The town hall used to be a big open space where you had a basketball court and a kitchen and a place to kind of hang out. And as far as I could see, that was destroyed when the town became a giant office building. I think somebody should quickly do something to right this. And I think somebody in that town board should stand up and say, I'm going to take care of it. I've talked to Amber and I've talked to Phyllis and other people, and I've told them, for a while I worked for Israeli companies. Israel's an amazing place that built an entire civilization out of the desert in less than 30 years. One company I worked for had a wonderful man who sat at the head of the table when the discussions like this went on for hours. And he said, I listened to you, I listened to you, I listened to you, I listened to you, and here's what we are going to do. Where is that in this town? Where is somebody who's going to stand up? Is that you, Supervisor Kusi? Is that somebody else on the board? Please stop the endless round and round with meeting minutes and he said, she said, and all this other nonsense. It seems to have been going on forever. Let's finally get a decision. If it's a decision not to do anything, that's okay. But at least there's a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. How about in this audience? Anyone left to speak?
We have some more in the chat, Supervisor. Carol Barnett, would you like to unmute yourself?
Yes, I would. Hello, everyone. My name's Carol Barnett. I live at 117 Lyons Road. I'm in favor of preserving the 1911 house, but I do want to say that for the people who are in favor of tearing it down, I am really shocked that it's being held up against a phantom. There's no concrete proposal for a recreation center. It's just this notion that has no price tag attached to it. And one thing I'm pretty sure of is that it's going to cost a lot more than anybody has said already. Things like that always cost a lot more than you think they're going to. And not to mention the running of it and the maintenance of it is going to cost more. So I guess I'm a financial conservative in this matter. I'd like to keep what we have and preserve it. And another thing I want to say is if you have ever tried to, the traffic is really bad at the intersection of 15A and 251 already. I don't know where the parking is going to go. You have a big recreation center. Where are you going to put the parking for that when you already have parking for the library and the pavilion and the town hall that's adequate for that if we were utilizing them fully? Mr. Darren said people used to meet at the town hall. Why don't they meet at the town hall now? Why don't we use those rooms, all of those rooms to their capacity? Why don't we use what we have? And then finally, I just want to say, please put a roof on this building. You know, for $10,000 or $15,000, we can save so much more money. I mean, you know, that's so obvious that it should be done. And it's just malpractice that it hasn't been done now. Please, 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 town board, please vote to put a roof on this house. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Don Eichenauer, would you like to turn your microphone on, unmute yourself, and again, give us your name and address?
Sure, Don Eichenauer, 35 Sylvan Knoll, Rush, New York. One of the previous speakers had mentioned that they needed to keep this house out of respect for the vision of the town board that purchased it at that time. My recollection, and I spoke this week to a couple of the town board members at the time, including Supervisor Bill Udicious, was it was known at that time that this house was not in good repair. It was purchased to protect that corner for future development by the town and to not have a developer come in and put a gas station or something of that nature right next to the town hall. It was always known that this house was not laid out for public use, would cost a significant amount of money to remediate it and make it usable. And that was whatever, 15, 20 years ago, before it's continued to be in disrepair and not maintained. But the reasons that it wasn't maintained for the most part were that it was never intended to be a long-term building that the town was going to use. It was intended to protect that corner for future development. So with that in mind and knowing some things about the situation of that house and the cost it would take to take an old house and try to repair it, it's not in the best interest of the taxpayers to sink unknown amount of funds into taking that, especially into repairing that, especially when it's not laid out with different rooms throughout, and it would not be of good use for public purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. Chat room?
I think we are at the end. If there's anyone else in Zoom land that wants to speak, please let us know.
I think we have
are
emptied the well, so.
Although I don't know if there's anyone else who wants to speak on a different topic.
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
This is 1911.
All right, I'm good.
If you want to talk about your new dog, we can do that. I would like the town board, having heard all of these comments, I would like to hear from the town board. But I first would like to hear from Mr. Woolaver, because he has been the liaison to that committee for a number of years. He probably has been around that building more than anyone. And do you have a appreciation and focus on where we?
I can see the both sides of the thing. An incredible amount of money to fix it. And I don't know, and I don't know about the use. I mean, the Historical Society's nice, but I don't know if it's the best use of taxpayers' money to preserve it with limited. I mean, the Historical Society is, I mean, there's going to be limited use for it. I think it could be used better for something else.
Yeah, the thing that's frustrating to me is the amount of non-factual information that's going around. And let me just give you an example. The recreation supervisor, when I first inhabited the building, came to me with a suggestion for putting a recreation area, a building over there. And she had brochures from I think it was a pole, no, it wasn't a pole barn maker, it was a steel truss building. And she said, look at this, we can get exactly what we want for $175,000. I said, oh, really? Let's go in my office and talk about this. And we went in and we looked at the brochures she had. And I said, where is the cement? And she said, what cement? I said, the cement that you're gonna have your programs on. At the price of cement these days, you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars, not only for the cement, but for the labor to put it in. Where's the electrical system? Are you gonna have candles? And you know, the point is, I'm not a good estimator, but I went through the whole litany of things with her that I thought should be thought about. And I got up to $720,000 real quick. I just wanted to mention that because I've heard so much stated here tonight that is not true. I don't want to say anyone's purposely fabricating information, but I think we need to make sure we're talking about apples to apples, bananas to bananas, and true costs. Dan, anything else?
Oh, most of the stuff that goes in a new building needs to be repaired at 1911. The electrical system, the heating system right now is electric baseboard. There's no gas to the property. Septic is good, but it needs new bathrooms. All that stuff. It needs a lot of work.
Deputy, do you have an opinion you'd like to share?
Yes, I've received many phone calls, many emails, many information. I've looked over documentation the Councilwoman Wickerham put in our mailboxes from the 1911 committee. And I have weighed what I think is what I'm hearing from most of the people in town. And I am in favor of putting a new roof on it to preserve the house. The house we paid along with the Historical Society's recommendation and Councilman Lang for Barrow report that the house is in good condition. We have an estimate of it's currently valued at $150,000 from our current assessor. And it could be a meeting space. It could be a place for people to go and play cards. It could be rented out to be able to use for presenters or guest speakers to come in. The only valid proposal we have detailed was from the Rush Historical Society. This has been going on. Yes, I can remember sitting on that side of the table and hearing Councilman Woliver and you sitting on opposite sides of the table saying, what's the latest on the 1911 house? Oh, well, it needs this and that, but nothing ever got done. This board needs to get it done. And as a few people have said tonight, we've been talking about a new roof since last year. And we as a board said, if we got a quote, we found out that the house was salvageable, if I said that right, we would put a roof on to preserve it until we knew what we wanted to do with it. And that's where I am at.
Thank you. How about Councilperson Wickerham?
I've got a little bit to say. I sat on that original committee from the very beginning. And I believe that Councilwoman Corbin was also at one or two of the meetings.
No, I was never at any
of those. You were on the Rush Riverside record.
Correct.
Okay, never mind. Same house, same facilitator.
Yes.
Okay.
She was very busy.
Yes. This committee started out looking at what the possible uses were. Like Mrs. Miller said, we had a lot of homework that we did, a lot of details that we came across. At one point, we asked the Historical Society for their wish list for that. If we were to save the building and make it a multi-use building, that was the purpose of the committee at that point. We were looking at what we could do to have a multi-use building. So we did solicit input from the Historical Society. They wanted meeting space, they wanted display space, they wanted storage space, they wanted space so that people who lived here would have opportunity to come and visit, but they also wanted it to be a presence for people driving through who might be interested in stopping to see. The Rush Recreation Department wanted more space for some activities. If we could expand the space that we have here in town, we would not have to rent space from other areas. The Boy Scouts, the senior citizens, the Girl Scouts could all have a meeting room. That's what they were looking for. The Recreation Department was asking for a fitness room large enough to teach classes. We currently use the Udicious Pavilion for that, but it's a limited space and limited activity times. An emergency shelter was another thing. The open gym, Monroe County Meals for Wheels could be used for that. We did ask the senior citizens, as Mrs. Miller said, they came resoundingly, they wanted a community space, a place to have coffee, a place to multi-use facility to support a combination of activities. I would love to see an accessible senior building with a workout center. The parcel is not large enough for a track or running space. They don't have access to that. I think that Mr. Cole mentioned the fact that 13 or 12,000 cars run through here. We're not running up and down or bicycling up and down the street. So we need a place for a recreation or fitness center so that people can come and gather. That was what we talked about. I heard tonight for the very first time that the Historical Society is interested in financing this project. This is the first time that the Historical Society has made that claim. It's I heard from Mrs. Mee that she has solicited interest in helping costs for the renovations. I have not heard that before. What I have heard up until this point is that the expectation was that taxpayer money would be used to renovate the building or tear down the building and put something new up. My perspective is we do need to look to future development, not what is here currently, what has been in the past. I understand that the Quinn house tends to have a warm place in a lot of people's hearts. I'm not quite sure why, but I too talked to Supervisor Eudicious, and the purpose of buying that house back in 2006 was to preserve the town campus property. His intent and the board's intent at that time, I spoke with two of the board members at that time. They all three of them said that the intent was to raise the house and preserve the town campus because they were afraid that if someone else bought it, it would be developed into something that was not going to be palatable to the town. So I keep going back to that, the original purpose of that purchase. I think that I would love to know where Mrs. Hankins got her data on the money that we still have in our undesignated fund balance. I would love to see that, those figures actually, that was on my list for the finance director tonight to get that, because apparently we've been spending it a little bit over the past 2 years. I do agree with Mrs. Mee that surveying the people, maybe that is something that the Historical Society could do. Do you want to go out and survey the people as to what would residents of this town want if we were to have a building there? I don't care whether we keep the one we have or we raise it and put something else up, but what is the purpose of it? What are people figuring the use of that building would be? I would love to hear that from the community. So if we can figure out what exactly the people would use it for, not just, oh yeah, that, you know, that would be nice, that would be nice, that would be nice, but would you use it? If that goes in there, would you use it? If that goes in there, would you use it? If they say no, then why would we do that? Or like Mrs. Scanlon said, she's been to the Caledonia Historical Society building. When she went, she was the only visitor. I have been to the Livingston County Historical Society building in Geneseo. It is lovely. It's beautiful, but it is funded by the Historical Society. They raise money, they pay for everything that they do there. They get grant monies, granted, they do, but it is the Historical Society that is paying for what it is that they do in most of the historical societies around this area. Who else did I talk to here tonight? Mrs. Barnett probably is correct in, you know, we dream of having something there, but isn't that what we're looking at? What do we want the future of that corner to be? What do we want the future of this town to be? That is what I'm looking for. I am looking to provide more community space, more interaction between our neighbors, far and wide in the town of Rush. And how do we do that? We cannot accomplish that by a single-use museum. That's my perspective.
Thank you very much. John, I've got a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
But before I ask them, I think it's very important that we make absolutely certain that we don't kick this can down the road anymore. I mean, I'm just embarrassed to sit here and have people tell me that we've been kicking the can down the road for 1 year, 2 years.
15 years since the day we bought.
I'm not done yet, Phyllis. Kicking the can down the road for 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's embarrassing. And I wasn't here all those years. So anyway, John, it seems to me that the board is pretty well divided. We have a log jam. I would not debate with Ms. Wickerham's comments, nor would I debate with Ms. Corbin's comments, nor would I debate with Mr. Woolaver's comments. So would this qualify for a public referendum?
Generally speaking, you cannot subject something voluntarily to a referendum. There needs to be a statutory authorization. So for example, you can't ask the question of what should we do with this property? If you were to adopt a proposal that, for example, would raise, for bond financing purposes, if you came up with a proposal that was subject to financing in that regard, that is subject to permissive referendum. So that would go to the voters of the town of Rush. So you need to come up with a proposal that would trigger a referendum in order to have the referendum. You can't just voluntarily subject something to a referendum that isn't otherwise authorized.
And what your comments are converting to, in my mind, is time into the future, which I'm opposed to. What would you say to a proposal that I would make to the board and say each board member produce a resolution for what you think should be done with that property, bring it to the next meeting, and we'll vote on them. And if it says demolish, we demolish. If it says rehab, we rehab.
You want 5 different proposals?
Why not?
Well, it's a little more complicated. Well, so let me back up a second.
It's out in the field, but I don't want to kick this can anymore.
I think in concept, what you are really asking the board to do is to come with a list of potential scenarios. Now, depending on what scenario the board then wishes to pursue, that is going to dictate any number of any number of steps that would need to be taken legally. For example, if you were to make a decision that you wanted to rehab the building, that's going to require us to go through our procurement policy. We're going to have to solicit proposals and make sure, depending on the cost, it's either RFPs or it might be a full procurement policy like we did to repair the library roof. If it's a demolition, there might be another set of protocols. If it's to, demolish plus build a community center, you're going to have another set of proposals, because if you do something under seeker, if you're doing an action and you're contemplating a holistic approach, there might be other legal mechanics that we'll have to do. So resolution in the abstract, in terms of having the board come to some consensus about what the next steps are, I think that's essential. What those steps then become is something I could certainly advise depending on what the board decides, but you're still, I think, at the stage where you need to make a decision about what it looks like. If it's the historical society and transferring it to them, that's another set of mechanics that need to be undertaken. And if they finance it amongst themselves, then, we can work through what that looks like. But there's any number of infinite scenarios here that could be contemplated depending on what to do with this property.
I agree with you, but we need to get going. We need to move. And I'm not willing to listen to a bunch of bureaucratic reasons why we can't. We've got to say, take the bull by the horn and let's do this, or let's do this. I heard Councilperson Wickerham say, you know what? She very gently took us into one area of proposal. Deputy Supervisor Corbin, pretty much the same thing, into another area of proposal. Why not ask those two All right, come up with your proposals. Let's vote on them at the next meeting. And then we'll deal with the ramifications after that, because I don't think any of us are gonna go to jail.
I don't, again, I think you are speaking to the issue, which is the board needs to collectively decide as a member of 5 what step to take. And I can certainly advise the town to implement that as soon as that decision is made.
But we've been doing that, John, for 2 years.
Okay.
And that's your prerogative. That's the town board's prerogative. I can't dictate what step you should take until you decide what, is it a town expenditure? Is it not a town expenditure?
I've got fingers, so I want to hear what the finger holders have as a proposal. We can't stop working on this.
Okay, all right. Hearing for the first time that the Historical Society from Mrs. Swanton and from the Historical Society members tonight, that they are interested in financing. Why? I don't know who made the comment, maybe it was Mrs. Hankin, that we have the Transportation Center, we have the Railroad Museum, we have the Fair Association using property, or we will it to them basically. Why I don't have a problem giving for $1 that property to the Historical Society. And then they can do with the building what they want to do with it. I don't have a problem with that. But I do not believe that taxpayer money should be spent any more on that house than we have already spent.
But you do know that we have spent taxpayer dollars on the Monroe County Fair.
Exactly, and I don't agree with that either.
And we don't charge them anything.
Yeah.
We have spent countless thousands of dollars on the Transportation Museum, taxpayer dollars. And so I'm not saying just because, nor did I, but let's make sure we're talking apples to apples, that we can't just say, well, we're not, because it's been done and this is town property to preserve it. We need to, but that is a compromise proposal that could potentially come up with further discussion. Absolutely.
I mean, just because we've never done it before doesn't mean that it isn't the right thing to do now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for backing me up, because that's basically what I'm saying. And I want to go on record as saying I'm skeptical about transferring the property to the Historical Society for one reason only. If you can position us so that it's not a concern, I would go for it. But what happens if that Historical Society defaults, that property gets auctioned off to
anyway?
Well,
whoever.
It would be the $1. Well, again, there's lots of different scenarios that we can't come up with.
Then we go against what the original agreement, our purpose was in the town board buying that property.
There are risks associated with any number of structures. And the only question really is, what are the financial benefits and costs of those, and what risks does the town want to absorb? If you maintain complete ownership of the property, you can lease it to the Historical Society. That will alleviate that concern, but there might be other financial ramifications associated with maintaining complete ownership of that building.
Historical Society can't come up with a number to go raise funds unless somebody figures out what the value of the property is. It's the town's property.
But the public comment period is over.
No, but I'm sorry. Listen, let me just speak one more second. In 1950, the town of Rush put in a water district. There was a document that came out that said how much it was going to cost in 50.
I'm sorry, Bill.
If I have to listen to Bill, I have to listen to anyone who wants to speak, and I can't do that.
Right, because we've got to.
All right, going back to John.
There are ways you can structure a relationship with the Historical Society. But I think the threshold question is that the transaction you want to pursue. If from a global or from a high level perspective, it is we want the historical society in that building, then you need to get some scope as to what that looks like. And then we need to work through the financial ramifications. Is it being funded by the Historical Society? Is it being funded by the town of Rush? Is it a combination of the two? And then we need to talk about what that relationship is. Do they want to own the building? Does the town want to maintain the ownership of the building? Because that's going to change the financial aspects of this. So, you know, I can structure that transaction certainly in any number of ways to facilitate having the Historical Society in that building. The question is, what does the town want to do with the building?
Well, I think you've heard one board member. I don't know about this board member or the absent board member. I think this board member would go along with that.
What we need is to develop a set of plans for actual what wall goes where, how we're dividing this up.
But only if we're keeping it.
If we're keeping it.
That's what we're going to need going forward. So there's a price, an actual, drop all the plans that we need, everything that needs to be done, and put it out for bid. And that's the only way you're going to find out. But we need to talk with the architect, get some engineers involved, find out everything the house needs to see exactly how much we're talking about.
I'm sure you agree that a lot of ice cold rain is on the horizon.
Absolutely.
And I just can't believe that we can't do something that's might not be kosher, but a little bit off the track to get this damn thing done. And it's your job to protect us if we do.
And I can do that if you tell me what you're doing with the building. I mean, that's the threshold issue. So, I mean, for example, if you want the Historical Society to go into that building and you want to continue to own it, I will guarantee you right now, we need to do a full-blown bid, competitive bidding package. We should start that right this second, because that will take 60 to 90 days, at least.
Yeah.
To get a bid in from a contractor to renovate that building so that an occupant can go in it.
Right.
What does the board desire?
It needs a roof. It needs a roof. And it is July.
It needs a roof, I agree.
And I think we were talking about that a year ago, about a roof.
How much is the roof gonna cost?
Anywhere from 14 to
well,
everything else it needs to 71.
You know what?
No,
I'm willing to take a risk of spending the money to get the damn roof replaced and go from there.
And that's what we as the board.
Well, what information do we have? How many? What's the bureau report say on an estimated basis about what it could be?
Well, I apologize, but in the packet Phyllis gave us, Councilman Woolever. Is this okay to say?
That's
yeah,
okay.
But that
yes,
was Stellar Roofing. This was November 2020 for $10,885.
But they didn't cover all of the chimney, all of those things, and the dormer, and
well, this is just the roof, though.
So
well, but
that's part of the
that is part of the.
Oh,
I mean,
dormer.
I mean, if you look at and the conversation we had with Barrow that night, and the conversation I just had with a roofer at my house. Well, you cannot just put a roof on unless you take care of the flashings around the dormers, the flashings around the chimney, all of the soffits, all of those things.
So we have the quotes from when the bid went out for the request for when Councilman Woolever was working on that. Let's call him up and get him out here.
I'd be less naughty if we could agree to get the damn roof fixed and then take our time moving on from that point. Because leaving the roof unattended, given the weather that's going to be coming very shortly, that's dereliction of duty.
I don't think any of the quotes that we got on the roof include fixing the dormer.
Right.
Why don't you fix it?
Because
I don't want roofs anymore.
You want, yeah. The question I have, Jerry, is before we spend money, I want to know where we're getting it. So over the next 2 weeks, can we get the finance director to get together with what
How much money was brought in since we got it?
Well, no, not that. I want to know how much money is left in the unexpended fund balance. Because that is where we're going to have to use the money from.
I will get that amount to you in the next week.
Yeah, because we don't have reserve funds. We don't have capital reserve funds. We don't have a savings account for specific purposes. It's all in the general fund, and it's listed as undesignated fund balance. I want to know what that is now.
I agree, but we also have to understand that money was made on this property.
Well, and exactly.
That would be a good comparison.
Which wound up in the general fund.
Right, and that's the point that Mrs. Hankins made, that all of that money went into the general fund. Okay, we can use that if it's still in the undesignated fund balance. If it's not there, then who do we steal it from? Who, do we take it from the rec department? Do we take it from the historian? Do we take?
Well, let's get the facts.
That's what I want to
make any claims.
Where's the money coming from? And then in 2 weeks, I will give you a decision, yay or nay, on putting a roof on the house.
I have to live with that.
You don't have to. I'm only one vote.
No, we all need the information.
We all need that information, and we should have it, and we should be able to speak openly about it. So I'm not opposed.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to get Ms. Wickerham that data. Anyone else have anything to say
on this topic?
What packet are you looking at?
Oh, no, this is the agenda. I was just going to ask if we
No,
could...
Phyllis, we're not going home yet.
No, well, I would like to make a motion to take item number 1 in old business and do that next instead of the board and department reports, because Mr. Moore was supposed to be first on today.
Maybe you didn't hear me say when we adjourned the meeting because of a technical difficulty 2 weeks ago, I said that we would go into the 1911 discussion with Mr. Silversky on deck, and then we would immediately go into the Moore application.
But that's not how it's listed on here, though.
Well, I don't, if you want me to become a clerk also and type up the, trust me.
Well, thank you.
That's the way it's going to be.
All right, I will trust that the Moore project will be the next on the agenda.
We are going to move on to Mr. Moore and his application for rezoning, which is a continuation from the last meeting. There's a couple of reasons why I've decided to do this, because I have been inundated with emails, letters, you name it, from people who have said, we want to be heard, we want to be heard. And you know what? You're going to be heard. Those people will be heard. So what I'd like to do, similar to the 1911 discussion, open it up to the floor, state your piece, and then the board will take over. And which way to go with that. So you are...
My neighbors have just left because they start work really early in the morning, but they basically have the same thoughts that I do. And I will be very brief. I'm Lori Spalding, Pinnacle Road. And I've been a Rush Henrietta resident for most of my life. Went to school at Leary, Berber, and Sperry, and know a lot of the Rush folks. And just less than a year ago, bought that house on West Henrietta Road. I've been working very hard all my life and pinching my pennies, and was able to move from Henrietta to Rush because they were going to develop the land across from my house, trying to develop land across from my house when I was in Henrietta, away from farmland, and they were trying to get it rezoned, and I didn't want to deal with that. So I thought Rush is a farm-friendly community. I love Rush. It's going to stay agrarian. I'm going to go there, and I'm going to spend my retirement years there. And if I had known that they were going to talk about developing a beautiful cornfield across the road from my house, I would not have bought my house. I would probably go to Avon or Lima or somewhere where I wouldn't have to worry about it. But it's a beautiful rural area. And that's what I always think. Rush is like the yin to Henrietta's yin. You kind of, if you want industry, go to Henrietta. It's 5 minutes down. If you want rural peace and quiet, come to Rush. I don't mind the higher taxes. I knew I was going to have higher taxes. And it's okay with me. I want my peace. I don't want more trucks. There's been accidents. I've replaced my mailbox twice in less than a year from people blowing into the fields, right coming over that hill. And 2 weeks ago, somebody went to the hospital right in front of a roadwork sign. Two cars got into a big collision, and there's still a wire down in that cornfield. So I hope whoever has the combine in there knows to look for that wire. But I'm just frustrated because there's a lot of industrial area in Henrietta that's not being used. I hate to take land that's zoned for agriculture and make it industrial. I've got relatives that farm, and they have to be dairy farmers because their land is terrible. And they come here and they are so jealous. The land here, the water, we have water quality and quantity. We have a temperate climate. If you look at the fields around my house, and they are just beautiful. And if you look at the rest of the world, there's very little land in this beautiful earth of ours that can grow crops the way we can here. You can put in a trucking center anywhere you want. But these farmers have worked hard. They've maintained it well. You know, I just hate to see it happen that way. So you have had a long night. I'll sit down.
Thank you very much.
That's how I feel.
How about the chat room?
Anyone in the chat room, please put your name in the chat box and we will call on you. So far, Supervisor, no one's in the chat.
Okay, in the meantime, would anyone else in the audience, sir? Name, address?
I'm Tony Masalala. I live at 7044 West Henrietta Road. We're actually neighbors. Only I never met you. I want to start saying two things. Number one, I agree with a lot that Mr. Kolb said. Not all, but a lot. Number two, okay, I have no reason to not want Mr. Moore to do his project. My problem is this. This is something that started with me. Actually, I'm going to handle today. I'm a past tax assessor. Okay, and part of what I do for a living is help trucking companies build new depots. And one thing I know is this, okay, in the last 10 years, I've helped 34 trucking companies in New York State, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, and Wisconsin build very large depots. I just helped a company called C&M move off Paul Road to 259 and 390. They just opened up in April a 69-bay depot. Okay, since April, they found out that it's way too small. They contacted me today. We're working on plans to open up another 132 spaces. Residents there who live on 259, okay, they weren't aware that this was going to happen. Residents from the other trucking companies never knew that their companies could go in, open up a pad, and then 6 months, a year later, okay, double, triple, or quadruple the size. As far as the other projects he wants to do, I agree with it wholeheartedly. Okay, that corner could use something. It could use a gas station. I mean, my neighbors say no, but I see that to be a good thing. Reason being, I can't tell you countless times people stopped in front of my house, they ran out of gas. I either got to give them gas that I use for my lawnmower or take them down to a gas station. Talking about the accident, the guy went right across my property to the next door, hit the pole, hit the little girl next door who was trying to get out of her driveway. 2 days later, there was another accident, not as big, but another accident. One thing that I took some time to do was I sat out in a chair in my driveway with a stopwatch. Every 13 seconds, something goes by. Every 22 seconds, a 12-wheeler loaded down with the last 6 wheels, okay, goes down, rumbling down the road. I'm hearing from a couple of the neighbors that if you got knickknacks on shelves, they fall off because everything shakes. The other problem that I got is this, is if they build that project to a point where they need to extend the Henrietta sewer, okay, which would be his project. The problem with that is somebody's going to lose land. It's either going to be us a lot on our side of the road or Krenzer on the other side of the road. And we're going to have to give up some land for that sewer district to go in. And now, I understand that if he does that, it won't affect the residents. But if Krenzer decides he's limited industrial, light industrial, and he wants to put a housing up down there, you're going to need sewers. Eventually, there's going to be a sewer. I think what needs to happen is Mr. Moore should be allowed to do what he wants to do. And most of his concept, when he had his meeting, I agree with. I think the trucking company part of it is something that could be put someplace else that won't affect the residents, won't affect that corner. Traffic there is horrific. I mean, one thing the town board should do is do, you know, a traffic survey, get the state to come in and let them count how many cars go through. And we really need an accurate designation of how many accidents actually happen. And, you know, but other than that, I don't have a problem with this proposal. So I don't want, you know, Jack or anybody else to think that I'm totally against it. The other thing that bothers me is being around all these trucking companies, no matter what the trucking company says, okay, when you get, well, they said 13 diesels, but you get 13, 20, 30 diesels in, it affects the air quality. You know, we live in the country because we want to breathe fresh air. We want to breathe diesel fuel. And what do we get now with all these trucks that are allowed to go down 15? We get the smell of diesel fuel. So when the wind blows from the west, we can't open up our front windows because all we're getting is the smell of the diesel. You live there, you know what it's like. So, you know, I think that he should be allowed to do a proposal, but I think the proposal needs to be changed a little bit to eliminate the trucking part. You know, there might be something else that he can put in there to compensate himself for that. I do agree that when we talked at my house and my kitchen, okay, the town does need to raise revenue. I sit on 2 boards. Between the combination of both boards, probably a $75 million thing that I'm also involved in. And I just think we need to allow him to do what he wants to do, but we need to modify a little bit to preserve the corner, preserve the town, preserve our fresh air. That's what I got.
Thank you, Tony. Anyone in chat?
Yes, Bill Darren, if you would unmute and turn your video on for us, give us again your name and your address. I blocked you, he said.
You did.
Tell him I oppose him from speaking up.
I didn't block him, I just muted him.
You shut him off.
Who was the next?
It says you're not muted. Ask to start video. Let's see if that works.
Yeah, all right, there we go.
There you go.
Damn hippie rebels causing trouble. Please live in Rush. I'm promoting it. Ask the man who lives there. I was the cute little kid who helped my father as a farmer. He was the last one in my generation. The Chases cut hay there now. Family farms are gone. I'm sorry. Industrial farms live there. It's a great thing, and I know people want it to continue maybe the way it was, but it won't. So how do you reconcile with the future, and how do you handle the fact that the price of everything goes up? Rush, in my opinion, is an advanced version of what's called NIMBY. Do you know NIMBY? NIMBY is not in my backyard, yes? Rush is an advanced version which is called banana, which means build absolutely nothing near anyone. I think Rush has to come to some conclusion that unless you want your taxes to go up forever and the income from anything in town to be negligible, which means you need to drive further to go get income, you end up with this terrible spiral. You end up with larger properties that collect larger taxes to pay the bigger tax bill with fewer people in the community and no industry or business. And the entire place just becomes a large number of farms cut up into 2 or 3 acre properties with big tax bills that pays off the debts of the community. And with no industry or business, well, there's no really anything for people to commute to. So it just ends up being a very kind of empty spot. And it continues to be so. It seems like every decade brings at least another 100 homes to your town. I say your town because I left in the 80s. I was endemic of the group of children that were taught to go get an education and make something of themselves and leave because there was no business or no opportunity for anybody my age in Rush. So why would we stay? So Rush has to come to some kind of happy medium with on the peripheral, on the edges, maybe away from the center of town, if that's what you want to preserve, some form of industry, business. And it's not going to be perfect. It's, you know, there's going to be a truck with a big noisy engine and it's going to go by 3 times a day. But what does that get you versus the fact that it's a big empty spot of land, which may be agricultural and based agricultural based and is discounted, right? Like agricultural land gets a discount. So it actually lowers the taxes. So that means for everyone else who isn't making much because there isn't any jobs locally, the price of living there goes up. And at some point, the older people, right, are going to leave, and what's left? I'm doing a deep dive into what is in this town, and I'm kind of scared because there's a lot of old people that I love, and I know they're all going to leave. I lost my uncle today, so I know what I'm talking about. The end result is that if the older people don't realize that there is a future for maybe younger people that don't go to college and don't need a degree and might want to stay where they are because there's some opportunity, there's a hope that you can build a community on your space, which again is the smallest and cutest and less developed place in all of Monroe County. It needs to come to some realization that somebody like Mr. Moore, who wants to take his own money and build some kind of resource which creates some kind of opportunity for people in the town, is tolerated. And you know what? It's not a panacea. It's not perfect. I'm sorry, your mailbox is going to get run over. Mine did, by the way, and the town put it back. So I'd like to thank them very much for that. And the end result is that if you don't come to some compromise with all the things that are happening in the world, you'll end up with nothing. You'll end up with a lot of empty space that you can't afford. And I don't want you to live in a place like I live, where, like I said, at the corner of Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Eleven, it's not very appealing. I think that if you want to avoid the terrible detriment of Henrietta or other places where unleashed commercial stuff comes in and takes over, you as a community need first the space that you're all debating, a spot to sit down and talk about it, where you come to some decision about what you really want in your town. What do you really want there? And you know what, if you create something that's so valuable, you know, what Mr. Kolb said won't happen. The government won't come in and say, hey, you know what, this worthless land that you don't know what to do with, we find better value in it. We're just going to do something with it. And since you're incapable of making a decision, we're going to make one for you. Or in the other case, a large landowner who, you know, there are several that own over 100 acres in Rush. If you probably know this already, there's at least 6 people that own over 100 acres in Rush. They're going to come to some decision about what they're going to do. Politically, economically, they're going to pretty much force their hand at some point with either you guys as a board or somebody in the future politically. You're going to have to figure this out yourselves. Create some amount of value that can't be destroyed by somebody who's bigger than you as a town. And, you know, I happily do anything to help you. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
Catherine Hankins, 2353 Pinnacle Road. Okay, you know, I'm positive for development, but I am very, very aware that we have a comprehensive plan underway. I'm very aware of what Mr. Darren says. And I realize that we're sort of the developer's dream out here. You know, they're coming. So the question always is, what are we going to do to tell them where they can have industrial development? Where can they have commercial development? Or what you referred to, what belongs where? What's the transportation studies? I have realized over the last couple of months that I can be going 55 down Pinnacle Road, then it goes to another speed limit. We are not studying that, but Council Member Lang is leading the comprehensive plan. So they look at transportation, they look at the diversity of residents. And what I was also surprised of in the last few months is that we have a lot of seniors who are moving to this town, some because their children have moved here and they want to be by their children. So it's not where all the seniors are leaving. They're not, they're coming. So we need a diverse approach to this comprehensive plan. And we do need to have people come together. We can come together here. We can change the configuration of this room and have meetings. And I think Council Member Lang is trying to do that. But before we move forward with rezoning, we have all these rezoning. That's changing the zone. And that's supposed to be done after you have a comprehensive plan. That's the rules. Otherwise, it's spot zoning. It's because we like Mr. Moore. I like Mr. Moore. It's because we like, you know, the folks down that are trying to do the project over on East Henrietta Road. I like them. I mean, you know, we've developed land, but we developed land where it was zoned residential. We never took farmland. It was zoned residential. It was farmers who took their land and divided it. So I am very aware that it's a matter of opportunity, but I've seen rezoning at the corner of Rush Scottsville Road and 15A. And it was because everybody thought Dorschel was just, he was a wonderful person. We're going to do it for him. He was flipping it. He took $135,000 and flipped it. And we found that there was going to be 19,000 people coming through that. We did the studies. That's fine. But let it be an opportunity for everyone because it's in our comprehensive plan. That's it. Finish the comprehensive plan and then let people come and say, oh, I can have it here. We have High Tech Drive still has vacancies. Let's do it right like other towns do. They finish their comprehensive plan, they change their zoning, and then people come and go where they're supposed to. But why are we doing it? We're doing it because we're still trying to hold on to the sense that, well, we know who they are. They're flipping the land. Jack Moore's not going to be, he's going to take it and give it to somebody who's going to develop it. That's fine, but let it be zoned that way first. So when people come to buy a lot, they know where to buy it. That's the right thing to do. That's the proper thing to do. That's what other towns do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hankins.
Carol Barnett at home would like to speak. Carol, if you would unmute yourself, turn your video on.
Hi again, everyone. It's Carol Barnett at 117 Lions Road. I'd just like to say one simple and brief thing. A gentleman spoke earlier and he said, you should let Mr. Moore do what he wants to do. The only problem is that the laws that currently exist in the form of zoning doesn't allow him to do what he wants to do. So he's requesting the town board to pass a law in his favor. I mean, he can ask, but no resident has a right to have a law passed in his favor, let alone to increase and improve his bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Name and address, Jimmy.
Jim Wilkins, 5891 East Henry Road, Rush. Hello, folks. I didn't think we'd be here this long. I'll only keep you for a couple minutes. I'd like to talk about the Big M property. I think that the town, the board should get after whoever owns that place and clean the property up, cut the trees down. You can't see the for sale sign. I mean, it's really an embarrassment. I mean, it's something should be done about that place. It's just not right the way it looks. I know the town cuts the grass out by the road, but I mean, it's just, I mean, speaking of all the cars that go through there, I mean, people got to be laughing. They're coming from one of the falls and look at that place right in the center of our town. I mean, we got some other we got problems, absolutely, but geez, that should be an easy one to solve. The other thing is, I know we got, you know, if you don't cut your land or cut your grass or something, I think there's some rule, but there's a property on 251 Volts old property. My God, the grass was 3 foot tall. And I see they mowed a little bit of it, but not by the road. And the house, I guess, is abandoned. But, you know, that stuff like that in town shouldn't happen. I mean, that should be, the town should go in there and do it and send them a bill. The same way with this property over here. They don't have to clean it up. Send the town over there and send them a bill. It's got to be within our rights. I would think we got some rights to have, you know, to have a neighborhood, you know, I'm thinking about the people who live next door to that place. I mean, there's got to be field rats, whatever, running all over that place. So that's all okay.
Thank you very much. I'm going to break my own rule and respond to that just to let you know, and all who are listening, that I have been talking about that with the code enforcement officer, that particular property. And I believe that that property is in foreclosure, which means it's being handled by some nice lawyer someplace. And
it's a lawyer's fault.
I've tried to deal with those guys on foreclosed properties, and the county just recently entered into a shared services agreement where they are going to be taking care of zombie properties, because our code enforcement guy has notified the people about that property, and you know what they do? They just blow it off. And I think, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, if we were to go on that property with town equipment without any kind of a warrant or anything, we could get in trouble if something happened.
Yes.
With that.
Well, I just think it's, you know, it would be everybody to.
Would you do it? No. Would I do it? No, but there are people who do that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your time.
It's being taken care of. Probably not soon enough, but it will be.
I understand. Thank you.
I do not see anyone else in the chat room.
Anyone else in this audience?
This is for the Moore property, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Mary Ann Rizzo, 25 Stoll Road. I still believe in this beautiful special town. Please do not rezone this property on West Henrietta Road to limited industrial. The reasoning that the planning board seemed to use was based on the 1993 comprehensive plan. And I feel there's two major issues with this reasoning. And number one, the former comprehensive plan was developed in 1993. That's about 3 decades ago. A lot has changed. I don't know, I'm gonna say it. Presently live here, probably didn't live here 3 decades ago. I don't know. Like half people in this room probably weren't here 30 years ago. Retail, a lot of things have changed. Retail has changed considerably, as you know, and the need for office space has changed quite a bit. And post-COVID, we can just speculate what's gonna come here with the needs for development. And so that's number one. So the town is updating the comprehensive plan now, and most of you got a survey in the mail today, and that was the first step of the comprehensive plan update. So please wait for the citizens, wait to hear from the citizens before you make a zoning change. It's just around the corner, and the comprehensive planning committee is going to do their best job, as I know you will. So number two, the comprehensive plan of 1993 is being used as a basis. But if you look at the comprehensive plan of 1993, and you look at the 69 acres that's proposed, about 30% of that 1993 plan is not in the comprehensive plan of the 69 acres that they want to develop. So 30% of it, almost a third, is just not recommended in the comprehensive plan. So if that's the basis by which the planning board or this board might use to zone it limited industrial, there's really a flaw in that reasoning. So please don't use the comprehensive plan as the basis for this decision, because it's not there. So please do not advance this zoning change tonight. Talk to the people who live all around this property. The vast majority do not want it. It is a developer's dream, and big changes will come to this block. Part of it's going to start with the rezoning, and the other part would happen with the sewers. Once you bring the sewers there, big changes are going to come to this block. So it's your job to represent the citizens. I hope you do that, and please represent the people of Rush. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. Chat room.
I see a hand up. Let me see whose hand is up.
Well, that's me again.
Still need your address again.
1633 Rush Henrietta Town Line Road.
We see you.
Okay. So a couple things. I think that, you know, people have brought up a lot of really good points. I think we need to go back and just remember that this town is not full of senior citizens. You know, our median age, according to the last census, is about 45 years old. So we're not old yet. But I also wanted to say that, you know, I looked at that census data. In the last 10 years, we've lost 3.5% of our population. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it looks like it's been a trend over the years. And I don't want, I mean, I know people are moving in, but it seems like people are moving out a little bit more. So we really do need to find out why they're leaving. And I think someone mentioned earlier, it's because there's really nothing here for them. Once they graduate from college, I think that was Bill, right? Once they graduate from college, there's nothing here for them. They take off. We don't have a lot of young families in Rush. And I think that as far as, Jeff Moore's proposal, rezoning, you guys rezone all the time. Well, not all the time, but you can consider rezoning when they're proposed. So, saying that he shouldn't request a rezoning, a special permit, that is something that he's able to do. He can submit that request. I think, Jack has really some good ideas. I think the idea of sewers, I'm going to get on this again. Sewers do not bring development. Sewers bring greater benefits to our ecosystem. These old septic systems are really bad for our environment. I was talking to my husband who used to live on East River Road. He had what was called a cheat pipe. Does anyone know what a cheat pipe is for your septic? If your septic system gets overflowed, guess what? Everything goes out that cheat pipe and right into the Honeoye Creek. Do we really like to have those kinds of things happening to the creek that we love? So, I think we have to really be cognizant of the fact that we have to respect people's rights to their own property. And we have to understand, that we can't just live in fear of change, because then we are going to end up a ghost town. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Thank you again, Joanne.
Arthur, would you like to unmute yourself, turn your video and give us your name and your address, please?
Yes, I'm Arthur Avila from 1000 West Scottsville Road. To be very honest, I don't know if Jack's project is the best thing for that spot or not. I think that is at least worth entertaining the idea, because like Bill said, there is an issue for, especially for people on my generation, there's not a whole lot of attractions of things to do in Rush, and there is not a whole lot of opportunity to work in Rush either. I'm here up now. I should already be in bed because I have to get out of home tomorrow before 6 a.m. to drive an hour and a half to get to my job. So it's not something that will make me move at this point, because I like here. And just like people who live next to that project there, the property behind my house is also owned by Jack Moore. And when I bought the house, the first thing that I told my wife is the biggest risk that we have here is the property behind our house being developed and the access to the farm road that is right across the window here in this direction turned into the road that would give access to that. That would be the biggest risk, but it was a risk that I was willing to take. When I bought my house, I did not expect that the cornfield behind my house would be a cornfield forever. I expected that at some point it would change. And it's not without inconveniences. There is always inconvenience, even from the best neighbors that I could dream of that live on the other side of the property that way. They have chickens and they come and they kick around my mulch. And if the best problem that I can come up with my neighbors or my mulch being kicked by these chickens, I am a happy neighbor that way. And I'm very grateful for having Jack as the owner of the farm that is here to my left, because he, for the most part, he seems to be a responsible farmer there. And he also lets me walk my dog on the farm road under certain restrictions, of course, and I'm very grateful for it, because otherwise I either have to take him to the tick infested trail and in the town, or I have to drive all the way to Scottsville, because that's the only place where I can get sidewalks to walk my dog. So if there is rain and everything is muddy and I don't want my dog to get ticks, I have to go one town over to walk my dog. And that's what I end up doing over half of the time. So I would welcome some sort of development here in Rush. I'm not sure where that development is supposed to be, but I would welcome it, so that all of those things that I do and would not make me a drive to go somewhere else. Because in the end, the people that I know from the town is my next door neighbor, and some people that I end up seeing here at the town board, because then everything else on my life it ends up not being around here, because just there's nothing to do here that connects me to other people from the town. And I find that that's really not great for the town, because then all of the discussions that we have here on the town board, they are all disconnected. The people here don't seem connected the way that they could be, because there's really not much in terms of things to do that bring at least people from my generation together with each other, especially in the case of my household. We have no kids, so we end up not having any school interaction with other parents that would be at our age. So I would say consider at least that development and the things that would come around it. Sewers is another thing. Joanne is absolutely correct. My wife teaches conservation biology and sustainability at SUNY Geneseo, and she tells me how bad septic systems are. The only thing is that most of you don't see the impacts of it, because you're just flushing everything to the water underground or letting it go downstream the river. So we are pushing our responsibility on that portion of the problem by letting our septic system wash the problems that are inherent, that we cause, away. But you know, it's here. It seems to be a theme overall. People seem to support solar energy or renewable energy as long as it's not here. People are all for clean water as long as it's not their water. They are all for affordable housing as long as people who can move into town can afford 2,000 square feet with an acre of land. So, you know, it's at some point we have to take also the responsibility to support and bear some of the cost for the things that we actually support. So that's what I had to say.
Thank you, Arthur. Any chat?
Nope, that is it.
Does anyone else here have anything they'd like to say? All right. Board members, you've heard some people speak. We have not, we have all received the planning board response to the application. And I don't see a problem why we couldn't vote on it, except I'd like Councilman Lang to be here for that vote.
Well, Supervisor, I did not finish. By the way, we learned that the Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi gets cut off every day at 10:10.
Yes.
It's been fixed, but that's what happened. And I was in the middle of my, and I don't have much more. So I know you're all saying, oh my gosh, here she goes again, but I'd like to finish what my comments were, if that would be okay.
I would like you to finish your comments.
In the planning board report, they said a portion, as some people spoke here tonight, of this property was to be rezoned to limited industrial in the 2010 portion of the comprehensive plan, not the entire property, just a portion of it. The three west, again, this is from the planning board report. This is not from me. Quote, 3 westernmost lots as proposed are beyond the limited industrial area suggested in the 2010 plan. Those are the 3 westernmost lots of the concept plan that Mr. Moore turned into the town. Again, the planning board report says the distribution center that is proposed would need a special permit. So again, there's another step if this were to be rezoned in the planning board. It's not like it's a given. Quote, other from the planning board report, other proposed uses are speculative, suggestive, speculative. In the 6th paragraph, they talked about some other things. I'll just skip that for now. But my takeaway from listening to the many people that have spoken, the emails I've received, the multiple phone calls, the written letters this town board has received, my comment, my statement is we are currently updating our comprehensive plan. We currently have limited industrial in the town of Rush that is zoned. It is not 100% utilized. Why would we be adding more limited industrial when we have not used what is currently in the zoning, that people bought their properties knowing that that was not limited industrial zoning? A survey, I just received mine today from the current comprehensive plan. There's a public meeting taking place next month in the pavilion where information could be gathered. So my proposal, this proposal to be rezoned, which is solely on this town board. Anyone can come, ask to be rezoned, but it is this board that has the ability to say yay or nay. Should end tonight. It should not be rezoned from R30 to limited industrial. Again, why? This would be considered spot zoning. I served on the zoning board for multiple decades. This is a rezoning change of use. It's not just simply going from one residential to another residential. Tonight, the comprehensive plan is doing its job. Let the comprehensive plan committee do its job. They've done a lot of work. They need to complete it. So why did we move to Rush? Let me, once again, I'll close with a quote from the 2010 comprehensive plan. The town's desirable existing character is the factor that attracted most residents to Rush in the first place. That character is likely to be the one of the strongest attractions for future residents as well. Consequently, it is vitally important to protect and where possible to enhance the existing character and to not let the new development that is attracted by the existing character change it in an undesirable way. That is my statement.
Thank you. Phyllis?
Well, again, I think I'm gonna repeat myself a little bit. Amber is, Mrs. Corbin, sorry, is correct. Right now, the current, there is a committee, a group together to update the current comprehensive plan. And the current comprehensive plan is what I am working with. That is what we are charged to work with right now. The current comprehensive plan did suggest that the Route 15 corridor is clearly a transition place, that the north of the 390 and west of Route 15, south of 251 and east and west of Route 15 should be the most practical places to put light industrial or limited industrial. They're interchangeable. Those are the areas that our current comprehensive plan tell us that we need to think about. It also is, you ask about why the current light industrial zone properties are not filled. I can venture a guess, and it's probably pretty accurate, that because our current light industrial zoned properties do not have sewer. They have septic tanks. So what will happen is, and as one of the speakers, and she wrote us a letter as well, and I'm sorry, I forget her, Mrs. Spalding, said that why don't you go somewhere else where there is already light industrial or industrial? Well, that's what people are doing, because those areas do not have sewers. So they are going 2 miles up the road into Henrietta, or a few miles to the west over into Scottsville and Honeoye Falls that do have sewers. So my concern is that we are losing an opportunity to develop the properties that were recommended in our current comprehensive plan, allow us to use that space to build our tax base at no expense to the town, because the property or the project, that the concept right now is that it will be a private road. It will be maintained by the owners of the properties that are on that road. The sewer will only go to that particular property. Only the landowners on that property will pay for the sewers. So at no cost to the town, if this project brought in $2.5 million worth of property tax value, as far as assessments, we would get $250,000 in property taxes every year out of that. We would not spend that money on putting that money back into that property. It would come into the tax base of the town of Rush to help support projects like the Historical Society wants to do, to help support projects over on the Rush Riverside Refuge that the town would like to do, support projects like that. If we don't allow certain growth in our area that is practical, this is the best place to do this. We can keep, if you look at, you've got your properties up here, you look at everything south of 251, it is going to stay the rural, residential, rural community that everyone here has moved for. If we look at the current comprehensive plan and do what it suggests, then we keep the industrial tax-based revenue in one small area. The rest of the town stays why we moved here. I do not see any reason not to entertain rezoning this to a light industrial. Let the project come before the planning board and let the planning board do its job in making sure that the developer does what we expect him to do. That's my say.
Thank you. Dan, summary?
Traffic studies, one of my concerns. Like this, I don't. How do you go about when you get results from a traffic study? If it moving forward.
Can I just interject? New York State DOT will require a traffic study. In fact, I just ordered it to be done.
It's been okay.
You know, it has to be done in order to get a curb cut on Route 15.
Right.
So it's already been ordered.
Good.
If I could supplement that, Dan, environmental impacts, including traffic, if the board does want to proceed, you'd have to declare your intent to be lead agency. And so just as we've done with the, the analogous solar projects, we would ask for any and all studies that this board would want, including, and I would recommend a traffic impact study for this type of project, but that would be a seeker component. So the board, if it chooses to proceed, that would be part of that phase.
Right.
I think a trucking company next to the expressway is a good place for it.
Unless you live there.
Well, but it is a state highway. It's been a state highway for many years.
We've heard a gentleman talk about the diesel smell and everything like that.
I understand that.
You're not living there.
No, we sat and talked about that.
And if I could reply to something you said,
Mhm.
Councilwoman Wickerham. The comprehensive plan of 1993, the proposed rezoning was never adopted. That is just there for this to be proposed, just like Meadowwood, just like Conway Falls, 5 Points Road. But it clearly states, if you continue to read in the comprehensive plan, west on Route 15, any development of limited industrial would be at a density low enough to not need sewers.
Suggested.
That, well, it suggested this would be potentially rezoned.
Right.
That's what it's saying. It is low enough density to not require sewers. So we're not talking about sewers. We're just talking about rezoning. We're not talking about that concept plan. We're talking about taking a piece of property and rezoning it to limited industrial. Because once we do that, it's off of our plate. I mean, there's a public hearing. This is a law that has to be changed. This isn't just rezoning. We're changing the zoning map of the town. Sorry, sir. So the requirements, this isn't just, we can just pass a resolution and rezone it.
No, I understand that. And that was why I had asked several meetings ago to put this out to a public hearing. And that was,
well, I think the comprehensive plan is the public hearing we need to get from the public, because if we're going to spot zone one property, why aren't we spot zoning other properties?
But it's not spot zoning, because it would be of a benefit to the entire community. Spot zoning to me is when only one or two landowners would benefit from that particular zoning. That to me is spot zoning.
Can you give us the legal definition?
Spot zoning is when you rezone a property that is not in conformity with the town's comprehensive plan. So essentially, if you were, I'm picking an abstract example, if you're in the middle of an R30 residential district and you're miles apart from the nearest, contrary use, and you put a singular business parcel right in the middle, highly dense residential area. That would be an example potentially of spot zoning. I read the planning board's report as indicating that it has reviewed the plan and has identified a light industrial zone property adjacent to this parcel. And it's also identified the fact that the current plan does speak of light industrial on a portion of that property.
Already.
And so from a legal defensibility standpoint, I feel comfortable that it could be rezoned without being a spot zoning issue, provided the proper findings are made by this board, who is responsible for making that determination. The planning board is merely a recommending board, but the comprehensive plan as it currently sits provides some information to support that conclusion, if that's the conclusion this board wishes to reach.
Thank you. I think we all needed that clarification.
Can I ask a question?
Technically not, but what do we think since the supervisor's not here?
Go for it. Here's what I want to know. Okay, we go ahead and a sewer comes in, okay? And Mr. Moore gets his project, so that's in place. Okay, what's to stop the county from coming in 2 or 3 years down the road saying, okay, you've got this next piece of land that I think Grenzer owns, okay, and we want to put low-income housing there, and the county's going to force that. How do we stop that?
The county can't force the town to do anything.
The planning board's report, which I took exception to, stated that that property to the north could be rezoned limited industrial, and then a sewer main would be required. So we're not talking keeping that residential. I don't know why the planning board stepped up to that part, because that wasn't the charge. But if Mr. Moore comes in and asks this to be rezoned limited industrial, why would not the property owner right there? Because now and then bring the sewer.
Is not that next piece of property already zoned light industrial?
No, it's R30. It's R30 all the way to Rush Henrietta Town Line Road.
No, there's a light industrial.
No, that's to the south. We're talking north, going north.
North, okay.
No, we're talking north. I know about the south piece. Yeah. I checked with the assessor.
But
anyone else have anything to say? And I'll say what I have to say.
Okay.
If any of you have been listening, you know that I feel very strongly that the town of Rush cannot exist in the 21st century the way it operated in the 20th century. It just can't happen. And I feel very, very strongly that we owe it to our kids and the future residents of Rush to prepare their venture into the 21st century. We're already here, but I'm talking about those who aren't here yet. We need those people to be able to be attracted to Rush and to come here and do their thing to become a member of the community. Now, one of my fleeting visions, and I've said this before, so please don't be surprised, I would like to see a sewer line come down to the Route 15A 251 intersection. I would like to see a sewer line come down 15A. I'm sorry, the first time I said 15 and 251. I would like to see a sewer line come down 15A to this hamlet. Now, I have said that for a long time, and I still feel strongly that way until I got inundated with requests from people in our community. Emails, text messages, phone calls. When I'm picking out my broccoli at Wegmans, somebody's inevitably gonna come by and tell me, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. So my point is, in our town law manual, and I know not all board members agree with us, but in our town law manual, we represent the will of the people. And I did not realize how many people are opposed to sewers in this town in any way, shape, or form. And I would be remiss if I voted for something that I know there's a whole bunch of people who don't want what I voted for. I can't do that. A similar situation took place a little over a month ago with the development up on East Henrietta Road. I was all for that. I told them I was all for it. And then people came out of the woodwork. And I said, I can't do this. I can't throw people who are taxpayers and who elected me. I can't throw them under the bus for a developer. I can't do it. And I find myself now in the same situation here. So be reminded that I do think that development in many different forms is going to come. We're going to need it. But the people who have spoken out to me now don't want it. And I'd like to leave on a happy note, not on a sour note. I've made my statement.
You need to widen your audience. There need to be more people to tell you what to do.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Bill, I'm gonna block you again.
That's okay, you could block me. But I'm saying you need a bigger audience. There's too few people telling you the right.
That's right.
No, there's not 2, 3 people, Bill.
No, he said too few.
Oh, too few. I'm sorry.
I've got a list of 110 people here.
Well, you're not the only one. I've got a file full. So, you know, it's really a tough situation to be in because I know what I've got to do my job and make sure that I'm not shortchanging the people who elected me. At the same time, I know the proposal is for what this town is going to eventually need.
If not there, where?
Oh,
if not there, where? Where are you going to put it? You put it up by the town park here. Where you
I cut Bill off.
Where are you going to put it? Where are you going to put it? If it's not, if it's not at the intersection, where are you going to put it? I mean, it doesn't make sense to think that way. I mean,
it doesn't make sense to think what way?
To the to the silent, you don't listen to the silent majority. You listen to people. The only ones you listen to are the ones that complain, and that's the ones that don't want anything. And they don't want anything.
Jimmy.
That's the way this town's been forever. They don't want anything.
Jimmy.
So I mean, I'm telling you, you're wrong. You were wrong up there. You're wrong there. You're wrong now, and you're crazy. I'm telling you, I lived in this town a long time. You're just wrong. You're wrong.
Well,
you're wrong, and I've had enough. You guys don't even care.
Jerry, now everyone goes
on. I'm done with this town because you guys are wrong. I can't hear. You're wrong, Jerry. You're wrong, and I like it, but you're wrong.
Excuse me.
You listen to a small group of people. 170. Got 170. Big
Not true.
So what? So what? There's a lot of people in this town, and I tell you what, this town is losing. Nobody wants to come to this town. I don't care what they say. Nobody wants to come to this
I get it.
And you're wrong. Come on, Barry, let's go.
I think you told me that 5 times.
You're wrong.
6.
And you don't listen to people like me. You listen to people that they got a group. There's about 180 strong, and that's all you listen to. You got people on the board that that's what they listen to. There's 180 people, and they don't want any change. They don't want nothing. I'm on the comprehensive committee. And I'll tell you what about the 93 thing, nothing was done. They didn't do a goddamn thing. And those people spent a lot of time on that committee. I was amazed. You read that thing, it's this thick. It's this thick of things. Nothing got done. I mean, that was crazy. And I'm on the committee, and I'm not looking to change, invent the wheel. I don't want things in town. You can beautify a town a little bit and do things, but you got to do things where it makes sense. If you don't make it sense on the farthest northern part of East End of the Road, it's stupid. It's dumb. You're wrong.
Well, if I'm stupid for supporting the people who elected me, then I'm stupid.
Well, I'll tell you what, I bet you'd be different if you weren't running for re-election.
Oh my God.
Okay, onwards.
All right.
So what do we do?
If I was running for re-election, I'd do opposite and I'd win for sure based on what he said. Mr. Cole, you wanted to speak?
Jerry.
Yes.
Jerry, you asked me to speak.
Yes.
Jerry, it's sad that you are not a leader.
I don't hear you.
It is sad that you're not a leader of the town. You are not a leader. You are a follower of a small group of people that have taken control of the town. There's 3,540 people in this town. You represent, as he just said, 180. And you will have to see the sleeping giant wake up. That's what's going to happen. Because of the actions that you have taken and not lead the town, that is going to be the results in the next election.
Well, that's fine.
You are not looking at the majority of the people. You know that I sit in that ice cream shop and see all the people in the town come through. They all don't know what's going on. All this little circle's doing.
I agree with that.
When they get woken up to it, it'll be a game changer because the people in this town want a future.
No, they don't.
Well, that's the little ADR people. That's the people you live with.
No, they don't.
That's the little people you live with. You don't deal with the older people.
I've been in this town long enough.
Could we have one person speak at a time?
This is not have anyone speak. Gary.
I just want to hear the rest of what Mr. Cole
But then you're gonna have to let everybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're gonna have to let everyone else speak.
Jerry, the town is not made up of old people. The town is made up of many people with many interests. And you have to look at them. Most of the people don't have time to call you and send you letters and everything else. They are living their lives, they're taking care of their children, they're taking care of their grandchildren, and they are the people that you are affecting that pay your bills, that pay the bills, and also elected you. They pay their taxes. And the sad thing is, last year, I took a walk from Honey Eye Falls to my restaurant. I walked the entire way because I wanted to see what things look like. If you ever did that and looked at the condition of the houses in this town, it's pathetic.
I have, Jim.
It's sad. And because you do not allow people to create enough income to stay in this town and work and take care of their homes, you know what's going to happen? Just as Bill said, it's going to be owned by a ton of people that have 5 acre, like Mrs. Hankin wants, 5 acre only homes put on the house. That's what she said in the last meeting. And people that own slum houses, because that's the way it's going to go. It's going to be a slum house city.
Thank you for your opinion.
Thank you, sir.
I respect it.
Thank
Unlike
you,
it doesn't go two ways. So
I respect you. I just said that you are not a leader.
Jim, do you remember the email you sent me about a month ago?
I always keep all the emails, Jerry.
Do you remember what you said? You said I changed. I made a major change in my dessert offering because the people in Rush told me they didn't want what I had. I said, you let the people in Rush tell you what you should offer?
180 people did. They told you and you listened to them.
All right, Jim, I've heard you.
Listen to the majority.
I've heard you. That's all I need.
Okay,
thank you.
Jerry.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes, you can.
I agree with most of what he's saying. And these, number one, 180 is an arbitrary number, okay?
Absolutely.
That's an arbitrary number. The issue isn't that we want to change that, the development. The issue is the trucking end. Let's keep what everybody's arguing about out there in the open. We're talking about the trucking end. We're not talking about, let's put a gas station in, let's put in a Dollar General or something, okay? A little print shop or a dry cleaners. Nobody's talking about that. We're complaining about the intersection with tractor trailers coming off there, trying to make turns, holding up traffic, smelling up the environment. That's what the issue is the tractor trailers. If his plan didn't have that in it, and if that little guy that was at his meeting didn't come off like he was mafia, because he did, okay? Well, you're laughing, but it's true, he did.
Yeah, but I didn't ask him to speak.
But he did, okay? I don't think you would have this issue in front of you. I don't think you would have complained about most of that. It's the tractor trailers is the real issue. If his project can go through without the tractor trailers, I think you'll find a lot of people that sent you letters and called you and talked to you in Wegmans would change their story.
Well, that's your opinion, and I respect it.
But that use requires a special permit from this board, or it
No,
can't
not
be.
this board, the planning board.
Planning.
So once
Really?
we
The town
rezone
board here
it,
doesn't
once
do special
we
permits?
rezone it, we are completely out of it. So we lose all the control of what could go there.
All right, where does our board want to go?
I don't entirely, I will disagree with that statement. I believe this board does maintain some control over the ultimate use of that parcel. And I say that because not only is it a rezoning, but this is a project specific rezoning. So in the secret process, you're going to be evaluating impacts. Now the specificity of those uses might be somewhat general because we don't know entirely what the end uses will be. But for example, if the project developer had said this, I'm going to have, it's going to be tractor trailers, it's going to be a gas station, it's going to be a mixed use of commercial industrial. You're going to evaluate those impacts. If the developer then goes to the planning board and says, you know what, scrap all of that, I'm going to change everything to a different use. If it's inconsistent with this board's seeker review, this board will still have authority to reopen the secret process because you're going to be the lead agency.
But in 5 years from now, another board can change things on that.
Another town
board could change it. So what this board decides is not set in stone for the future. So I hear, right, exactly, that's where's your argument coming to this board about that? We're looking at rezoning. We're just talking, we're not talking secret, we're just talking, do we want to even begin that process?
Yes, at this stage, yes.
Right, that's all we're talking about
but
right
I didn't want the assumption to be that if you did decide one to proceed and number two,
I understand
to get to the end of this road, that would be essentially
the be all end.
Yes, the be all end all, and you would lose your authority.
Right, but there's a comprehensive plan that I want to see what they are going to do from a 30-year-old comprehensive plan. Maybe they will say yes. Maybe they will say no, but that will bring the whole town in. So
does the board have an opinion? Do you want to follow my request that Ryan be here with us to vote? Or would you like to vote without him?
What would the vote be for?
The vote would be to approve the planning board report to the town board.
We don't have to.
We would have to go to schedule
a public hearing. That would be our next step.
Well, that's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, our next step.
Yeah, twofold. It would be a public hearing and to declare lead agency status.
Right,
If
exactly.
you want to proceed, that is the next step.
Yeah.
If you do not wish to proceed, then there's nothing, no action to be taken.
I would like to proceed with a public hearing and declaring ourselves the lead agency. I make a motion. Anybody second it?
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Councilman Oliver?
Aye.
Can I just step back? I haven't seen this motion. What is the motion?
The motion is to take this plan to a public hearing and do our due diligence through a public hearing like we're supposed to.
And when is that public hearing?
Well, that's what we need to
We got to
schedule.
establish that.
Well,
that's what, yeah.
That would be part of the resolution though.
Well, my resolution is we need to approve, or we need to move forward to a public hearing. When do you want to set it? I don't have a problem. And that way Ryan can hear. Ryan can be here for all of the rest of it.
Why is everyone getting their phones out?
Calendar. Calendar.
It would be, well, the earliest it could be is the second meeting in August.
Okay.
Legally speaking.
All right. 25th. So the 25th of August.
Are you awake?
So what the motion on the floor was to declare lead agency status and to schedule a public hearing.
Yes.
For the 25th of August.
For August 25th at 7:15 in the town.
Right.
Councilman Wilbur,
Aye.
Councilman Corbin,
Nay.
Councilman Wickerham,
Aye.
Supervisor Husey.
Nay.
So it doesn't go anywhere.
No.
All right.
So you don't want to do due diligence.
Well.
The vote was taken.
Yes, it was. You're right.
The comment
Never mind.
period is over.
Yes, ma'am.
I will accept the comment on whether or not you'd like to adjourn the meeting, considering the time.
Oh, I would love that.
I agree. I'll second that.
All right, we will take up the balance of this agenda at the next meeting, like we did.
Hi, Jerry. It's Christine.
Probably got to do.
Yeah.
You probably should do the.
We have to approve the abstract. Here you, Christine. Thank you.
The abstract and the budget transfer.
Oh, hey, 1 second.
Hold on.
Do the abstract and any budget transfers.
We will rescind the.
Thank you, Christine.
Can you discuss it outside?
All right.
And we need approval of the abstract, which Councilperson Wickerham has.
Okay.
Do you need me to, are you upset? Okay, go for it.
Do you have a resolution?
Yeah, I always write my own because I never know if it's ever not gonna come through. Want me to?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You, Councilwoman Wickerham, so moves.
So moved.
Yeah.
Do the budget transfer.
No, but we're gonna
do the abstract first.
Abstract.
Or do you want to, you can read it right off of my notes.
Oh, good.
It's the dark bolded part, about the middle of the page.
There it is. Okay. Look at you. Okay. That way.
We always do the abstract before the budget transfer.
Yeah, we've always done it that way.
I'm sorry.
It's late.
It is,
Okay.
we know.
Okay. All right, there we go. Okay. So approval of the abstract, council, I so moved after having reviewed all vouchers 6/14 through 6/64 dated July 26, 2021, that they be approved for payment in the amount of $72,707.36. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And then I just want to make note of the large items, like Mrs. Corbin always likes to make sure. Large items in this particular abstract, the highway department had 2 payments that totaled $25,800+ insurance and workers' comp, $23,942, and legal expenses of $6,366. And so I have a second and
I'll take my notes.
Oh, sorry.
Councilman Wilbur,
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin,
Aye.
Councilwoman Wickerham,
Aye.
Supervisor Pusey.
Aye.
Okay, and then the budget transfers for 7/28/21 are $1,844.23 for the purpose of moving money out of unallocated fund balance into unemployment insurance, to pay for unemployment insurance. Be it resolved that having audited all the unexpended balance of existing appropriations, I move that transfer number 8 of $1,844.23 be approved. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Christine, I have one question.
I'm listening.
As I was reading this, we are taking money out of unallocated fund balance to pay our regular unemployment insurance payments.
It's coming out of the contingent account and it's paying for the New York State unemployment insurance tax.
We do not have a regular line item in our budget of allocated funds for payments of unemployment insurance.
Would possibly be over the limit that we set aside for that?
Well, that would be, that's a good question.
There. Christine?
What, did we lose
Oh,
her?
sorry. I thought I didn't realize I was muted. My apologies. Yes, there were funds set aside for that, but we went over that amount. And I know this has kind of been an issue because of COVID and a lot of people kind of going over with unemployment insurance, but we did have funds set aside, but we went over.
Really? I mean, but nobody did unemployment because they got paid.
Right, didn't we do a transfer of
You
funds
still
for
gotta
this
pay
as well last month?
Yeah, so that's my
annual-
concern is we keep taking money out of the savings account to pay for a regular bill, a regular line item. I guess that is something we are definitely going to have to look at during the budget process this year.
For sure.
To see,
There's a lot of things.
What's been the increase in the unemployment insurance? What is the percentage of increase from this year, from last year?
Well, it says to reflect employer New York SUI tax for general payrolls, 915 and library.
Yeah. But that's our typical payroll unemployment insurance.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that I noticed in the budget was the highway department was buying extra data for their phone. Christina, I would like to know how often does that happen, and should we increase his data capacity outright if we're doing it every month and we're spending extra money?
I think we might need to sit with maybe Mark and speak to him about that.
I mean, I know in my phone plan, when I go over my data, it's expensive to buy 1 gig. And if he's doing that on a regular basis, then we need to increase his data plan to be a heck of a lot more cost effective.
Efficient.
And find out why it is.
Cost efficient.
Yeah, but that was one thing I noticed in there too.
So I'll second, I'll second the transfer. I don't know if we
Okay.
did that or not.
Yeah, you already did.
Yeah.
Councilman Wilbur.
Aye.
Councilwoman Corbin.
Aye.
Councilwoman Wickerham.
Aye.
Supervisor Pusey.
Aye. Having conducted all the business before the town board of Rush, move that we close the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sandra sent me a chat wanting to know if he would be on the next meeting. I said, and I put you on that.
All right, so the meeting's over, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Everything.
Kill it. Just hit stop recording.
Phyllis, I want you to hear this. I